Chapter 434. As the two sides clashed, a frenzied slaughter was about to break out. Facing an army of more than 300,000, and with their surroundings sealed off, Lin Feng and Nono charged forward. "You're courting death," the golden-robed youth from the Five Elements' secret ground sneered. "Instead of running away, you dare to stay and struggle. Looks like you're really tired of living." No one thought that Lin Feng and Nono could survive. Even the supreme limits from the Sui-Yang realm didn't have the slightest bit of confidence in them. It was just that there were too many enemies, so many that it made one's scalp tingle. It was like a swarm of locusts passing through. Anyone who saw it would be terrified. Even if a true beginner Earth Saint came, he wouldn't dare to fight head-on. Law technique, Heaven's Wrath. Lin Feng's ultimate move that he had been holding back finally exploded at this moment. Although Nono didn't learn any law technique, it had a huge body. The more enemies there were and the denser it was, the more advantage it had. Rumble! With Lin Feng and Nono as the center, a huge explosion swept out in all directions. In a breath's time, all the enemies within a kilometer around them were cleared, forming a vacuum. Just like that, Lin Feng gained a total of over 4,000 points, which really made him happy. Although Nono wasn't as good as Lin Feng, it also gained more than 1,800 points. A flash of quick-witted joy flashed in its cold eyes. Chirp! Nono let out an excited and sharp chirp. The golden-robed youth from the Five Elements' secret ground was stunned. One strike. With just one strike, Lin Feng and Nua had killed close to 6,000 supreme martial artists. If this number seemed too vague, then the vacuum formed within a kilometer around Lin Feng and Nua was very direct. Compared to the densely packed enemies just now and the vacuum now, the intense visual conflict brought the greatest shock to everyone. The extreme supremes of the Sui-Yang realm all stopped in their tracks and stared blankly at Lin Feng and Nono. The supreme limits of the Five Elements' secret ground began to break out in cold sweat. An unprecedented sense of crisis, as well as the threat to their lives, instantly shattered their hearts. Although they knew that Lin Feng and Nono were strong, they didn't expect them to be this strong. That was a supreme being with close to 6,000. They weren't cabbages that could be found on the roadside. Even though they were both at the peak of the supreme being level, the two of them were able to kill nearly 6,000 supreme being with a single move. The gap between them was simply unimaginable. No, this is definitely not something an ordinary primary Earth Saint can do. The young man's expression instantly became extremely gloomy, and he looked ferociously at Lin Feng and Nono. Damn it! When did the Sui-Yang realm give birth to two such terrifying geniuses? That move just now should be much stronger than an ordinary primary Earth Saint. At the very least, it should be at the peak of the primary Earth Saint level. He wasn't too close to Lin Feng and Nono, so he could only roughly estimate their strength based on the destructive power of their attack. If he personally went up to experience it, perhaps he wouldn't think that Lin Feng and Nono were only at the primary Earth Saint level. Nono might barely be considered a peak primary Earth Saint, but Lin Feng had undoubtedly stepped into the intermediate Earth Saint level. Moreover, he was a relatively powerful existence among the intermediate Earth Saints. Perhaps he wasn't the strongest of the intermediate Earth Saints, but his strength was undoubtedly at the forefront of the intermediate Earth Saint level. Before he could react, Lin Feng and Nono launched another attack. Law technique, Heaven's Wrath. Just this law technique alone was enough to annihilate these enemies. Lin Feng didn't plan to expose the existence of countercurrent in front of so many enemies. After all, countercurrent and Heaven's Wrath complemented each other, so its attack power would increase by a lot. If he accidentally scared away all of his enemies, then the losses would outweigh the gains. Lin Feng still wanted more enemies to come. Chirp! Without Lin Feng using countercurrent, Nono's speed was even faster than Lin Feng's. In terms of killing efficiency, Nono was actually catching up to Lin Feng. Everyone within a radius of tens or even hundreds of kilometers was watching this scene in shock. Lin Feng and Nono's strength was simply too shocking. No one could withstand one move from Lin Feng and Nono. No, it should be said that every move they made was bound to take away hundreds of lives. The most terrifying thing was that Lin Feng was always holding an ice coffin in his hand, which made him look even colder. His body was covered in countless layers of blood, which made his appearance very ferocious. One look at him would make one's scalp tingle. Fear before the battle, defeat was certain. He was already so terrifying while holding the ice coffin. If he didn't have the ice coffin to restrain him, how terrifying would he be? No one knew the answer to this. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes had passed, and the army of more than 300,000 had been slaughtered. Only a few were left, causing the surroundings to appear incomparably desolate. As for the few remaining ultimate sovereigns, they scattered and fled in all directions. They were terrified by Lin Feng and Nono's slaughter. They no longer had the courage to resist Lin Feng and Nono. More than 300,000 people were slaughtered within 10 minutes, which was less than a quarter of an hour. The nearby people were all shocked by Lin Feng and Nono's strength. They were too strong. Lin Feng stopped and looked at the World Battlefield Tokens points record. He murmured, 275,000 points. I wonder if this is considered a lot? Nono might not be as good as Lin Feng, but his World Battlefield token had also accumulated more than 168,000 points. Since the establishment of the Supreme Limit Battlefield, there had been countless amazing geniuses. But how many of them had accumulated more points than this number? No one knew the answer to this question. But even if there was, it wouldn't be too many. After seeing how powerful Lin Feng and Nono were, the Supremes of the Suiyang realm's morale was greatly boosted. Some of the hot-blooded people actually chased after the fleeing Supremes of the Five Elements' secret ground, seizing the opportunity to kill them. The Suiyang realm, which was originally at a disadvantage, actually took the initiative after this battle. The situation was reversed. As for the golden-robed young man, after seeing that the situation was not good, he decisively fled. Now, he had escaped thousands of miles away. In this vast Supreme Limit battlefield, a mere Supremes was like a speck of dust. Even if hundreds of millions of people were sent out, it would be difficult to find his specific whereabouts. If only this kind of good thing could happen again. Lin Feng couldn't help but chuckle. Then, he shook his head. It's already very good to be able to earn so many points in one go. What else am I not satisfied with? Of course, the more points he had, the better. If there was a chance, Lin Feng would definitely not miss it. Nono said, "Boss, we've basically killed all the people here." Lin Feng nodded. Yes, these people should have been organized by the enemy from nearby. There shouldn't be many enemies here in a short time. Let's go somewhere else. Where to? I just heard them say that this place seems to be the southeast region. It's a relatively remote place. Since that's the case, let's go to the center of the battlefield. There should be more enemies there. Soon, Lin Feng and Nono set off, flying rapidly toward the center of the battlefield. The two figures flashed and disappeared hundreds of feet away. What they didn't know was that the news of this battle had gradually spread among the Suiyang realm's Supreme Limit experts, as well as among the enemies. This was especially true for Lin Feng. Everyone who had seen him had a deep impression of him. Of course, it was hard for everyone not to have a deep impression of him since he had carried an ice coffin into the Supreme Limit battlefield and annihilated an army of more than 300,000. Only a few fish had escaped the net. Powerful strength, strange behavior, and great influence. Lin Feng had another name on his head. Ice Coffin Killing God. In the Battle of Longevity, there were very few people who could obtain a title, whether it was in the Supreme Limit battlefield or other battlefield. This was because only extremely powerful people who caused a sensation would be given a title. It had been 8 years since a Suiyang realm cultivator obtained a title. It was enough to imagine how rare such people were. 8 years ago, the person who obtained the title was the young master of that faction. And Lin Feng, on the first day he entered, obtained a title. Although this title was a little strange, it was undeniable that it was a real title. And if this title could be recognized by the person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm, its influence would become even more terrifying, and it would also be able to obtain tangible benefits. Lin Feng didn't know these things, but even if he did, he wouldn't care too much. He was clear about his goal, which was to obtain the Faith Crystal. This was why he didn't hesitate to expose his strength and kill the enemies crazily. It was also his only goal. There are many enemies here. No, let's take care of them first before leaving. Okay. As the two voices fell, a huge figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. A slightly thin young man jumped down from the back of the behemoth, and while everyone was still in a daze, he did not hesitate to slash down with his sword. A few minutes later, the young man and the demonic beast stopped and set off again. And at the same place, the Supreme Limit Sui-Yang realm cultivators were left with a shocked expression. They stared blankly at the two figures that flew away extremely quickly and disappeared from their sight in the blink of an eye. Walking and stopping like this, Lin Feng and Nono had already harmed countless Supreme Limit Sui-Yang realm cultivators in the Five Elements secret land. In short, every time they saw a place with more enemies, they would stop and clean up one side. After killing most of the enemies, they would leaving behind two handsome figures and a bunch of shocked hearts that were about to shatter. The southeast region was very big. Lin Feng and Nono walked and stopped, killing as they advanced. It took them several hours to reach the edge of the southeast region and gradually get closer to the center of the battlefield. And the places they passed by were filled with legends. The mighty name of the ice coffin killing god had spread to the ears of almost every expert in the southeast region. For a moment, the Supreme Limit Sui-Yang realm cultivators and the Five Elements secret land were all excited. P.S. Where is the promised monthly ticket? Please give me a monthly ticket, thank you. Chapter 435. My lord, I've just received news that the two from the southeast region seem to have changed their position and are heading towards the center of the battlefield. They're coming? That's right. Although they're strong, there are too many enemies. Two fists can't fight against four hands. They're smart enough to come here for protection. But that's good too. It saves us a lot of time. We'll probably be able to see them soon. Since they know to come here, we should be able to find them in the shortest amount of time if we follow their direction. That's right. Have you confirmed their route? It's confirmed. They're heading in our direction. That's good. Let's not delay any longer. We'll immediately head to where those two are and get in touch with them as soon as possible. Don't let the enemy get ahead of us. Yes, my lord. The person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm's Supreme Limit battlefield and the three teams he led quickly approached Lin Feng and Nono's position. Obviously, they wouldn't let Lin Feng and Nono, who were combat geniuses, die so easily. In this world, there were two types of geniuses. The first type was those who cultivated extremely fast and could rapidly break through their current realm, breaking through to a higher realm at an astonishing speed. These geniuses were known as cultivation geniuses. However, other than these geniuses, there was another type of geniuses known as battle geniuses. These geniuses might cultivate very slowly, but their battle prowess was extremely powerful, standing at the peak of the same realm. There were even some who could fight across realms, such as those who were at the peak of the martial saint realm. But no matter what kind of genius they were all highly valued by the Sui-Yang realm. Cultivation geniuses could become experts in a shorter period of time. Combat geniuses were the treasures of the various battlefields of the Battle of Longevity. In the outside world, cultivation geniuses had a higher status than combat geniuses. But in the various battlefields of the Battle of Longevity, combat geniuses had a much higher status than cultivation geniuses. because every combat genius could influence the situation of the battlefield. Perhaps they weren't strong enough to control the situation of the battlefield, but being able to influence the situation was already very impressive. Of course, if one possessed both, then such a genius would undoubtedly receive more attention. However, such a genius was extremely rare. The person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm anxiously approached Lin Feng and the Nono, and the person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane was equally anxious. In fact, they were even more anxious than the person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm, because Lin Feng and the Nono were slaughtering a large number of extreme supremes in the Five Elements secret plane at every moment. The speed of their deaths had already exceeded the range that they could bear. Therefore, they had to control the source of the slaughter and gather a large number of elite experts to annihilate Lin Feng and the Nono in one fell swoop. Young Master Xing, have you really decided to do this? The person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane asked with a conflicted expression. Standing in front of him was a young man in a golden robe. If Lin Feng and Nono were here, they would probably recognize this person as the one who organized the 300,000 troops to attack them. The young man said solemnly, "It's better to be slow and steady. I've already seen the strength of those two guys. They're definitely much stronger than you think." He didn't mention that his army of 300,000 was completely annihilated because that would be too embarrassing. He came here to take the opportunity to take revenge. Believe me, you've all underestimated them. The person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane frowned. But if we gather again and the people in the Sui-Yang realm find those two guys first, then it'll be even more difficult for us to kill them. Even if we can kill them, we'll have to pay a greater price. Hearing this, the young man's expression darkened. But what if we rush in rashly and get killed by them instead? What will happen then? This time, the person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane frowned even more. Are they really that strong? One must know that the strength of their side was definitely more than half of that of the Sui-Yang realm. They didn't launch a large-scale war before because both sides needed to maintain a balance and reduce some losses. If they really fought, they were absolutely confident that they could annihilate the people in the Sui-Yang realm. Let me put it this way. I suspect that their strength is among the best among the beginner Earth Saints. The young man narrowed his eyes. Moreover, I saw with my own eyes that we have a strong supreme peak on our side. He gathered an army of 300,000, but in the end, he was still defeated by them. So, you should understand their strength, right? Hiss, there was a sudden gasp from the surroundings. The person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane asked with an incomparably solemn expression, "Young Master Xing, are you serious? I'm a member of the gold-spreading secret plane's royal family. How could I joke about such a thing?" The young man said indifferently. The person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane took a deep breath and said, then as young Master Xing said, "Prepare for a tough battle." He knew that if the other party really had such strength, then they might not be able to stop the other party. Moreover, once their strength was scattered, they would inevitably be defeated by the other party one by one. At that time, the Five Elements secret plane would be in danger. Therefore, they must concentrate their strength and carry out a fatal blow. Even if they had to pay a higher price, they would not hesitate. The person in charge of the Five Elements secret plane decisively made a decision. He would rather let the two people meet up with the person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm first than rush up with the elite. Lin Feng and Nono, who had no idea how much of a sensation their actions had caused, were still happily killing at the edge of the southeast region and the center of the battlefield. "Nono, how many points do you have?" After clearing another place, Lin Feng asked with a smile. Nono smiled proudly and said, "Boss, you definitely won't guess. I have 250,000 points. How about it? It shouldn't be much less than yours, right?" Lin Feng touched his nose and said slowly, "I think I have 420,000 points. Nono's throat was stuck, and he almost choked on his saliva. His eyes bulged as he stared at Lin Feng. After a long time, he said dejectedly, "What's so great about 420,000 points? I'll catch up soon." This little guy's temper was not willing to admit defeat at all. In the supreme limit battlefield, people could not feel the passage of time. The surroundings were always gray. After an unknown period of time, Lin Feng and Nono's points increased by a lot, but they were stopped by a group of people. Looking at the group of people in front of him who were also emitting a faint light, Lin Feng motioned for Nono to stop and asked lightly, "What's the matter?" "We are from the 3rd Squad of the 76th Column of the 12th Army under Lord Kong Yuan of the Shuntian Prefecture. We are also temporarily in charge of the overall situation of the Supreme Limit battlefield in the Suiyang realm." The person who spoke was the person in charge of the Suiyang realm. He was a middle-aged man who exuded a trace of murderous aura. "My name is Han Zhilong. People from the government." Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. "Lord Han, what's the matter? You are the 2 combat prodigies of the southeastern region, known as the Ice Coffin Killing God and the Flying Demon God, right?" Han Zhilong's serious face revealed a smile. "I hope the 2 of you can come with me. Of course, I don't want to restrict your freedom. I just want to protect your safety. Your crazy massacre in the southeastern region has spread throughout the entire Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9. Even we at the center of the battlefield have heard of your names. But do you know that your actions have caused a huge commotion? I can tell you responsibly that you have been targeted by the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret plane. Although I don't know why they haven't arrived yet, I can be sure that they are already preparing to deal with you." After a pause, Han Zhilong looked at Lin Feng and Nono and said sincerely, "I hope the 2 of you can come with us first. I can't guarantee your safety, but we will do our best to protect you." "Boss." Nono looked at Lin Feng, somewhat reluctant to Han Zhilong's proposal. Lin Feng shook his head. "Thank you for your kindness, but we don't need your protection for the time being." Han Zhilong frowned slightly and advised, You may not know the strength of the other side. Just like our Suiyang realm, the 5 Elements secret land will also send some elite supreme martial artists who have reached the time limit to participate in the battle into the battlefield every 3 days to take charge of the overall situation. Moreover, they have more people than us and are stronger than us. If the 2 of you meet them alone, you may be in danger. I hope the 2 of you will consider my suggestion." However, Lin Feng still stubbornly shook his head. "Forget it. We need points, a lot of points. If we follow you, we probably won't get any points. So, please understand." Without waiting for Han Zhilong to speak, Lin Feng asked, "By the way, I heard you mention Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9 just now. Are there many Supreme Limit battlefields?" Hearing this, Han Zhilong explained, "There are indeed many Supreme Limit battlefields. There are a total of 107 of them. Our Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9 is just one of them." Lin Feng thought for a moment. "Then do you know how many people there are in total? Your question has me stumped." Han Zhilong smiled bitterly. "Not to mention the 107 Supreme Limit battlefields, I don't even know how many people there are in our Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9. Because every Supreme Limit battlefield is incomparably vast. Not to mention others, just the Southeast region alone has no less than 1 billion people. And the Southeast region is just a corner of the battlefield. You can imagine how many people there are in the entire Supreme Limit battlefield. So many." Lin Feng was shocked. Counting this, he and Nono together killed less than 1 million enemies. It was really a drop in the ocean. "Do you have any other questions?" Han Zhilong asked. Lin Feng shook his head. Han Zhilong hesitated and said, "You really don't want to accept our protection? One must know that they were all elite. He himself was the best of the best. Moreover, he had the qualifications to mobilize the army hidden in Suiyang. He could provide Lin Feng and Nono with the greatest protection. Of course, this army was limited. There were only 3 million people in total. In the entire Supreme Limit battlefield, it was a drop in the ocean. But 1 million people was more than enough to protect 2 people. No, thank you, Lin Feng said confidently. I believe that if we really want to escape, no matter how many people they have, they won't be able to stop us. Han Zhilong opened his mouth, but he had already said what he needed to say. If Lin Feng insisted, he couldn't persuade him anymore. Then I wish you all the best. Han Zhilong looked at Lin Feng with a complicated expression. He turned and left without any hesitation. Although he left, in fact, Han Zhilong didn't go too far away from Lin Feng and Nono. He also sent a small team to investigate the surrounding situation. Once they found something wrong, they could respond immediately. What they didn't know was that only 10,000 kilometers away from them, a large number of ultimate supreme powerhouses were continuously gathering here. In the void, they were like celestial soldiers and generals, but there were too many of them. They were densely packed and looked like endless ants, occupying the area of hundreds of kilometers. At first glance, the number of Supreme Limit Supremes here was no less than 5 million. Moreover, each of them exuded a murderous aura. When all of them gathered together, it formed a murderous aura. The aura was extremely terrifying. Even the person in charge of the 5 elements' secret ground was frightened. Although the person in charge was qualified to mobilize this army, he only realized how terrifying they were when he actually mobilized them. Perhaps their individual strength wasn't considered elite, but they were soldiers. They were good at group combat, and their aura was sharper than ordinary people. Most importantly, with more than 5 million soldiers, they could definitely contend against tens of millions of ordinary powerhouses. With such strength, even a mid-level Earth Saint would have to take them seriously. Let's go. The person in charge of the 5 elements' secret ground took a deep breath and gave the order. He looked at the young man in golden clothes beside him and sighed in his heart. I hope young Master Xing didn't lie to me. P.S. Ask for a recommendation ticket. The current recommendation ticket ranking is a bit low. This is free. Please sponsor the recommendation ticket. Chapter 436. The Supreme Limit battlefield was chaotic all year round. Killing was the main theme here, and death was a frequent visitor here. From the center of the battlefield to the edges of the battlefield, almost every inch of space was filled with cruel killings. There was no room for reconciliation between the Suiyang realm and the 5 elements' secret land. However, the situation between the Suiyang realm and the 5 elements' secret land had quietly reversed. It was all because of the crazy battle in the southeast region. The 2 combat geniuses known as the Ice Coffin Killing God and the Flying Demon God became famous in one battle. Although not many people actually died in their hands, they changed the morale of the Supreme Limit Suiyang realm and dominated the battlefield in the southeast region. The importance of combat geniuses to the battlefield was vividly demonstrated. After leaving the southeast region, Lin Feng and Nono fought their way to the center of the battlefield. After reaching the center of the battlefield, they kept changing their positions and clearing out the enemies in many places. They were active around the center of the battlefield, making the enemies tremble in fear, breaking the enemy's momentum, and suppressing the enemy's morale. It was the 18th hour since they entered the battlefield. When Lin Feng and Nono cleared out the enemies in another place, the expected enemies finally arrived. Rumble! Dense soldiers marched toward this place. After 14 hours of organizing and hurrying, they finally caught up with Lin Feng and Nono and quickly surrounded Lin Feng and Nono. They're finally here. Lin Feng's expression was a bit serious. At least millions of soldiers. They really think highly of us. Nono was no longer as lazy and relaxed as before. He said, They'll be here in about 15 minutes. Boss, do we fight? Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. They took the initiative to give us points. How can we not take them? This was a lot of points. If they could take them all, then Lin Feng and Nono wouldn't have to worry about faith crystals for a short time. As for whether or not he could take them down, Lin Feng was still very confident. Although there were many enemies and they were different from ordinary supreme martial artists, didn't he still have a trump card that he hadn't used yet? I've always thought that this was a useless combination of laws. Who would have thought that it would finally be useful today? Lin Feng's eyes burned with flames. All this while, Lin Feng's strongest skill was the combination of reverse flow and heaven's wrath. First, he would use reverse flow to increase his speed to the maximum, creating a terrifying impact force. Then, he would use heaven's wrath on top of that impact force, increasing the power of heaven's wrath by several folds. Under such circumstances, even an ordinary mid-level Earth Saint would have a hard time escaping from it. Then, what if he reversed the order of the two and used heaven's wrath first, then countercurrent? The answer was very simple. That was to weaken the power of heaven's wrath, but increase the attack range of heaven's wrath by a large margin. From there, it would become an ultimate skill with a large area of effect. The combination of laws was different in order, so the effect would naturally be different. In the past, Lin Feng had never had the chance to use this move. However, in the supreme martial artist battlefield, especially in a large-scale battle, this terrifying combination of laws was definitely a terrifying existence. Even without this trump card, Lin Feng was not afraid at all. He had the confidence to win. If he added this trump card, what did Lin Feng have to worry about? What he needed to worry about was not whether he would be exhausted by the enemy, but whether there would be enough enemies and whether they could withstand his attacks. About 100 kilometers away, Han Zhilong received the news immediately. 5 million. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, and his tone was extremely shocked. Are the people from the Five Elements Secret Land trying to provoke a decisive battle between the Suiyang realm and the Five Elements Secret Land? His face was very ugly. He actually encountered something that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. How unlucky was he? Originally, there were 2 combat geniuses on his side, which should be something to be happy about. However, at this moment, because of these 2 combat geniuses, an unprecedented war was about to erupt. Han Zhilong could no longer be happy. He smiled bitterly. No wonder the other party hasn't arrived after so long. Turns out that they are gathering troops. The other party could be said to have caught him off guard. If he had known this news earlier, he would have already gathered troops and prepared to fight. Although he could only deploy 3 million troops in the Suiyang realm, there was more or less a chance to struggle. Now that he had put all his attention on Lin Feng and Nono, he had relaxed his vigilance. As a result, there was no time to gather troops. As a result, there was only one result. Madman, the other party is simply a madman. Han Zhilong cursed. However, the situation was urgent and he could not afford to be careless. After pondering for a moment, Han Zhilong decisively gave an order. Pass down my order. Immediately gather our 3 million troops. An elite soldier beside him said in surprise, Sir? Hurry, if you delay any longer, there will be no more chance. Han Zhilong said loudly. 1 hour, I will give you 1 hour. After 1 hour, I must see 3 million troops. If one is missing, I will hold you responsible. The elite soldier took a deep breath and said with a serious expression, Yes, sir. Soon, the group of elite soldiers beside Han Zhilong left. All of them went to deploy troops. Only a small number stayed by Han Zhilong's side to protect his safety. You must hold on. As long as you can hold on for 1 hour, we can counterattack. He clenched his fist and prayed. However, 2 people against 5 million troops, including no less than 5,000 elite soldiers and the person in charge of the Five Elements secret ground, could they really hold on for 1 hour? With such a force, not to mention Lin Feng and Nono, even if Han Zhilong led his elite troops and 3 million troops, the chances of victory would not exceed 30%. Han Zhilong seemed to have seen the final result. His face was filled with despair. Time passed slowly, and 15 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. 3 minutes left. Han Zhilong bit his lips. On the other side, the 5 million troops gathered in the five-element secret grounds had completely surrounded Lin Feng and Nono, blocking off every possible escape route. It was like catching a turtle in a jar. The person in charge of the 5 elements secret ground and the young man in golden robes stood side by side, looking at Lin Feng and Nono like a cat playing with a mouse. Ice coffin killing god, flying demon god, we meet again. The young man in golden robes smiled. Lin Feng was surprised. So it's you. Didn't you escape? The young man in golden robes frowned and then sneered. Even now you are still so stubborn. I admire your courage. However, I hope you can still smile later. Behind him were 5 million troops, 5,000 elites, and the person in charge of the 5 elements secret ground. With so many people, even a mid-level Earth Saint could be killed. I don't care if I can laugh later. At least I can laugh now. Lin Feng smiled faintly. We'll talk about it later. The young man in golden robes was suddenly annoyed. You don't talk too much. Young Master Xing, we can't delay any longer. Otherwise, if Han Zhilong realizes it, we will have to pay a higher price to kill these two. The person in charge of the 5 elements secret ground said in a deep voice. The young man in golden robes glared at Lin Feng and snorted. Then what are we waiting for? Kill. The person in charge of the 5 elements secret ground immediately stretched out a hand and slowly pointed at Lin Feng and Nono. Pass down my order. Kill. Kill. The deafening sound formed a terrifying wave of air, making people shudder. 5 million people roared in unison, and these 5 million people were all soldiers. Their momentum was sharper than the average person. How spectacular was that scene! How shocking was that! Lin Feng and Nono looked at each other and immediately laughed. Kill. Although his voice was soft, his heroic spirit was not affected in the slightest. Holding the ice coffin in one hand and the heavy sword in the other, Lin Feng's figure flashed slightly, and an extremely terrifying force was transmitted from the heavy sword. At the same time, his figure also swept out at a speed that was difficult to be seen by the naked eye. That terrifying force erupted from the place where he was originally at. Rumble! In an instant, wherever it passed, it formed a vacuum zone that was like a chasm. Reverse flow, heaven's wrath. The two great skills that defied the laws of heaven reversed the order, causing the destructive power to become even more astonishing. Its attack power was reduced by no less than 10 times, but its attack range was also expanded by more than 10 times. According to a rough calculation, at least 3,000 people were killed by this attack alone. This was a group attack, a super large group attack. Before the supreme limits of the 5 elements secret ground could launch an attack, they were stunned by this terrifying scene. P.S. Monthly votes, hee hee. Chapter 437. Roar. Before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. Before the supreme limits of the 5 elements secret plane could react, a heart-palpitating roar came into their ears. Immediately afterward, the originally incomparably huge demon beast in front of them actually skyrocketed in size again, from a small hill to a huge mountain, like a deep-sea behemoth. Its terrifying aura made the surrounding enemies unable to stand steadily. The next moment, this giant beast waved its claws, and thousands of supreme limits who couldn't dodge in time were torn to pieces. One man and one bird, in just 2 moves, caused at least 6,000 casualties to the enemy. In just a breath's time, Lin Feng and Nono's surroundings were cleared, and no one survived. At this moment, their terrifying strength was vividly displayed. Mid-level Earth Saint, they are definitely mid-level Earth Saint. All the supreme limits were horrified. Even the face of the person in charge of the 5 elements secret plane became unprecedentedly ugly. He had countless guesses, but he didn't expect such a result. He was mentally prepared to pay a huge price, but he wasn't mentally prepared to be wiped out. Don't retreat, keep moving forward, kill. At this time, the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret plane had no choice but to continue to send people to attack under pressure. Otherwise, everything he did would be in vain. In contrast to them, Han Zhilong's originally worried expression immediately turned into one of ecstasy when he noticed this scene. The elite soldiers beside him, as well as the ultimate supremes who were watching the battle, were also dumbfounded. The young man in the golden robe didn't expect Lin Feng and Nono to have hidden trump cards, and he was extremely shocked. However, Lin Feng and Nono didn't care whether they were shocked or not. It wasn't easy to get an opportunity, and they wouldn't waste it. Law skill, countercurrent. Law skill, heaven's wrath. Lin Feng's figure began to flash everywhere crazily and frequently. Wherever he passed, no one could stop him. The strong smell of blood spread in all directions, making people nauseous. One large-scale group attack after another, harvesting one life after another, like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Within the short span of a minute, no less than 100,000 supreme martial artists had died in Lin Feng's hands. Nono's size had increased to its maximum. With a swipe of its claws, it could take thousands of lives. The most terrifying thing was that such an attack didn't even consume its energy. To it, a swipe of its claws was as easy as drinking water. Therefore, within a minute, the number of enemies it killed was no less than Lin Feng's. In less than a minute, Lin Feng and Nono had created a hole in the endless army. Fresh blood covered their bodies, making them look even more frightening. The news about the duel between the two geniuses and the army of 5,000,000 Nine Heavens Supremes in the 5 Elements mystical ground spread rapidly. More people were making their way to the place, including those from the Suiyang realm and the 5 Elements mystical ground. However, when they saw the battle situation clearly, everyone was stunned. 2 against 5,000,000. Furthermore, they were soldiers, and they were able to force the enemy to retreat. This scene was simply too thrilling. According to Lin Feng and Nono's fastest killing speed, it was estimated that the 5,000,000 soldiers would be slaughtered within an hour. This was their limit. This was the most terrifying thing about them. Crazy. Everyone around had gone crazy. No one could keep calm on both sides. The people from the Suiyang realm were naturally excited, while the people from the 5 Elements mystical ground were terrified. As time went by, more and more people gathered around. Among the 5,000,000 soldiers, there were fewer and fewer people alive. A quarter of an hour later, with Lin Feng and Nua as the center, the surroundings had become a sea of blood and mountains of corpses. Sticky and stinky blood floated in the void, and Lin Feng and Nua were at the center, surrounded by endless soldiers, one after another, charging forward without fear of death. Even if they were terrified to the extreme, the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret plane did not give the order to retreat, so they had no right to retreat and could only pray for a miracle. 100,000, 300,000, 500,000, 1,000,000. In the blink of an eye, more than 1,000,000 soldiers of the 5,000,000 army had fallen. And this number was still rising at an alarming rate. It's over, it's completely over. Seeing that Lin Feng and Nono were not tired at all, and were even more ferocious, the person in charge of the 5 Elements mystical ground was in despair. So many soldiers have died, and we still haven't killed them. Even if I can get out alive, I will be punished by the captain. The person in charge of the 5 Elements mystical ground was in despair when he thought of the gloomy ending he was about to face. His heart sank to the bottom of the valley. He slowly turned his head and looked at the young man in the golden robe with a murderous look. However, as soon as he turned his head, he found that the young man in the golden robe who was originally beside him had disappeared. That guy, he actually ran away. He gritted his teeth, and there was a ball of anger burning in his chest. He wants to make me the scapegoat. Although he was very unwilling and angry, the person in charge of the 5 elements' mystical ground could do nothing. After a long time, more than half of the 5 million soldiers were killed or wounded under the extreme killing of Lin Feng and Nono. The person in charge of the 5 elements' mystical ground stared at this scene in a daze. He clenched his fists so tightly that his slightly sharp nails dug into his palms. However, he did not seem to feel the stinging pain at all. He stared blankly at the battlefield in the distance, looking at the soldiers who were rushing toward Lin Feng and Nono like moths to a flame. He seemed to be carrying a suffocating pressure on his shoulders. Everyone around, regardless of friend or foe, was deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. How can they be so powerful? Han Zhilong at this moment could no longer describe his feelings with words. The strength of Lin Feng and Nono was far beyond his expectation. Could it be that they are already on par with the real strong people with the title? He was suddenly shocked by his own guess, but when he thought about it carefully, the strength of the real strong people with the title was just like this, right? The so-called strong people with the title were naturally those who were officially recognized by the authorities. This kind of strong people's combat strength was extremely terrifying. They were definitely at the peak of the same cultivation realm, and Lin Feng and Nono's performance was not inferior to the title strong people. It should be known that any title strong person was the treasure of all forces. Such existence belonged to the top fighting geniuses, that is, the best of the fighting geniuses, and it was hard to meet them in 1,000 years. If they wanted to join any force, they would have more advantages than others. Sometimes, they would even have the right to join the force without having to participate in the assessment, and it would not cause any dissatisfaction. Title strong people, they are definitely title strong people. The supreme limits of the Sui-Yang realm were all going crazy with joy. Seeing this scene, the person in charge of the 5 elements' secret ground was even more shocked. At the same time, he was also more determined to kill Lin Feng and Nono. Finally, he could no longer sit back and watch Lin Feng and Nono kill the soldiers crazily. Title strong people, we can't let them leave the 5 elements' secret ground alive. His expression was extremely solemn. Even if we have to sacrifice everyone in the Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9, we must keep them here forever. Taking a deep breath, he slowly took out an item. It was a small colorful flag. Throwing out the small colorful flag, he quickly formed a seal with both hands and shouted, "Order!" The next moment, the small colorful flag shone brightly. The bright colorful light covered everything, and the surroundings seemed to have become a colorful world. The colorful light passed through the blood light, through the sea of people, and transmitted to every corner of the Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9. 5 colors holy flag, a title strong person in the Sui-Yang realm is born. We can't let them grow. Let's go kill. Kill them! Everyone, listen to my order, kill the title strong person in the Sui-Yang realm. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng and Nono couldn't help but frown. A touch of doubt appeared in their eyes. When Han Zhilong saw the soft colorful light, his face changed drastically. He was so angry that he cursed, F***ck. Crazy, these guys are really crazy. How many people from the 5 elements secret ground were there in the Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9? Although they didn't know the exact number, they could guess how frightening that number was even if they used their toes to think. You forced me to do this. Han Zhilong gritted his teeth and slowly took out a small flag. It was a small flag that emitted a dim light. You're not the only one with a holy flag, I have one too. Sui-Yang holy flag. Throwing out the small flag, Han Zhilong formed a seal with both hands. The next moment, the dim light emitted by the small flag suddenly increased by 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times, 100,000,000 times, and even more. Bathed in this dim light, everyone in the Sui-Yang realm stopped fighting and flew rapidly in Han Zhilong's direction. This sudden scene caused everyone to be dumbfounded. There was only one thought in their minds: the sky is falling. The five-colored Saint Flag and the Sui-Yang Saint Flag were the ultimate summons. They could summon everyone on one side, and anyone who dared to defy them would die a horrible death. Regardless of whether it was the five-colored Saint Flag or the Sui-Yang Saint Flag, once they were activated, they would summon all the top powers on the battlefield. Therefore, the Holy Flag, in a way, represented the ultimate war. Because of a title-strong person, tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of people in the Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9 were involved in the ultimate war between the two sides. It was no wonder that Han Zhilong called the other party crazy. However, if Han Zhilong did nothing and allowed the other party to gather their people and attack the Sui-Yang realm's strong person, the Sui-Yang realm would inevitably be defeated and eventually be annihilated. This result was also not something Han Zhilong could accept. Now, he could only take a gamble. He bet that Lin Feng and Nono were strong enough to deter one side and dominate the war. Otherwise, the Sui-Yang realm's strong people in the Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9 would be finished. The Supreme Limit Battlefield, which was originally filled with killing intent, suddenly became even more tense. Every place was filled with the smell of gunpowder. The slightest touch would cause an explosion. A terrifying torrent formed by countless strong people rushed toward the center of the battlefield. Lin Feng and Nono looked at each other. They clearly sensed that countless people were rushing toward them. "It seems that things have gotten out of hand," Lin Feng said in an uncertain tone. Nono nodded blankly. "It seems so." Chapter 438. To be honest, the action of the person in charge of the Five Elements' secret ground really startled Lin Feng and Nono. Although they didn't know what the five colors Holy Flag represented, as long as they weren't fools, they could tell that this thing was not an ordinary thing, and this strange five colors Holy Flag proved its extraordinariness. "Well, as long as I can earn points, it doesn't matter," Lin Feng whispered fiercely. Nono also had a ferocious look. "Kill!" Then, the man and the bird continued to crazily reap the lives of the enemies. Large numbers of Supreme Masters fell around them, forming large areas of vacuum. "Kill!" The person in charge of the Five Elements' secret ground took a deep breath and looked back reluctantly. Finally, he slowly withdrew his gaze and shouted, taking the lead and rushing toward Lin Feng and Nono. The 5,000 elite soldiers around him also followed the person in charge of the Five Elements' secret ground and rushed toward Lin Feng and Nono. F***CK. Han Zhilong cursed angrily and directly called the remaining hundreds of elite soldiers around him to rush toward Lin Feng and Nono. "Brothers, we must not let the two titled experts die in their hands. Everyone, listen to my order, follow me, go, kill them! Kill them!" The situation had developed to this point, the ultimate war was inevitable, and they had no choice. Han Zhilong and the person in charge of the Five Elements' secret ground joined the war, which immediately escalated the war. After the two people in charge joined the war, the Supreme Masters who came around didn't even have time to understand the situation and joined the war without hesitation, causing the war between the two people and 5 million soldiers to further expand. The number of people kept increasing at an astonishing speed, and millions of soldiers were instantly drowned in this terrifying torrent. Those people were all organized by this guy? Lin Feng's eyes fell on the person in charge of the Five Elements' secret ground. "Speaking of which, I have to thank him, otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to kill so many enemies in such a short time." Nono said, "Boss, I'll kill him." Lin Feng smiled and said, "All right, I'll leave this mission to you." The person in charge of the Five Elements' secret plane had planned to sneak up on Lin Feng and Nono and launch a surprise attack in an attempt to injure or even kill Lin Feng. However, they didn't expect that Lin Feng and Nono were so skillful in such a frenzied slaughter. They even had the time to observe the surroundings and discovered their existence at last. Before they could get close to Lin Feng and Nono, Nono's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from their sight. When they saw the Nono again, the Nono was already in front of them. Roar! The monster-like roar immediately frightened the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret plane and the 5,000 elite soldiers around him. Feeling Nono's claws carrying a power that could easily crush them, they couldn't help but turn pale, their eyes filled with despair. No! The person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground roared in despair. Just as he finished speaking, Nono's claws had already swept across their bodies. Under this power that was close to that of a mid-level Earth Saint, they could not resist at all and exploded one after another, turning into the dust of history. As soon as the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret plane died, the entire Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9 trembled. Immediately after, a rain of blood fell. This rain of blood filled every corner, containing a sorrowful aura, as if the heavens were lamenting for someone. Everyone in the 5 Elements secret ground was stunned. Rain of blood, rain of blood. Dead, the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground is dead. God, that's the official in charge, the spokesperson of the lords in the supreme battlefield. Who killed the person in charge? Ice coffin killer god, flying demon god, you deserve to die, I'm going to kill you. It should be known that the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground had an extraordinary identity. If he died, it was tantamount to a slap in the face. Killing the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground was tantamount to provoking all the supreme limits of the entire 5 Elements secret ground. Similarly, the supreme limits of the 5 Elements secret ground had never killed the person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm. But this time, the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground was really dead. For a moment, all the supreme limits of the 5 Elements secret ground went crazy. They were extremely agitated and angry, and didn't hesitate to consume a lot of yuan qi to speed up tirelessly. They just wanted to reach the destination as soon as possible and kill the person who dared to provoke all the supreme limits of the 5 Elements secret ground. At this moment, a strong smell of gunpowder filled every corner of the supreme battlefield. He actually. Han Zhilong's face was full of shock, and then he smiled bitterly. The person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground has been killed. It's over, this battle is unavoidable. In fact, when Nono killed the person in charge of the 5 Elements secret ground and hundreds of elite soldiers around him, it suddenly felt countless angry gazes converging on it. Even with its fearless temperament, it couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva, and its scalp tingled. "Boss, we seem to have made a big mess," Nono said weakly. Lin Feng frowned. "What's done is done, it's too late to say anything now." He exhaled. "Nono, get ready, we may have to face more enemies endless, I hope we can hold on until the end." Han Zhilong was not far from them. Hearing the two's conversation, he smiled bitterly. "I say, the two of you, aren't your ability to cause trouble too much?" Originally, he still had the confidence to protect the lives of Lin Feng and Nono, but gradually, he began to feel powerless. Now, his confidence had been shattered. Not to mention protecting Lin Feng and Nono, he didn't even have the slightest confidence to protect himself. Now that the people of the 5 Elements secret plane had gone crazy, the people of the Sui-Yang realm were also going crazy. The situation of the entire battlefield was no longer under his control. He couldn't even affect the situation of the battlefield at all. In other words, although he still carried the title of the person in charge of the Sui-Yang realm, it had no practical meaning. Kill these two devils. For the dignity of the 5 Elements secret ground. For our glory. We won't give up. The 5 million strong army that had been crippled by Lin Feng and Noa Noa instantly received an even greater number of reinforcements. Tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions, of peak supremes rushed over. The surging power could even bring great pressure to a mid-level Earth Saint expert. On the other hand, the supreme peak experts of the Sui-Yang realm roared excitedly, "Ice Coffin Killing God! Flying Demon God! Ice Coffin Killing God! Flying Demon God!" The roars in unison were so imposing that the wind and clouds changed color. They were excited, they were proud, they were proud. This was because they couldn't remember how many years it had been since something like this had happened. For countless years, the Sui-Yang realm had always been the one being bullied. Even if there were a few combat geniuses, or even a titled expert, no one dared to kill the person in charge of the 5 elements' secret ground. That required not only strength, but also courage. Lin Feng and Nono's actions were undoubtedly very satisfying. They were heroes, the heroes of the entire Sui-Yang realm. They used their actions to prove that the Sui-Yang realm wasn't weak. So what if the person in charge was killed easily? Kill. 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 After the excitement, they all rushed to the battlefield to meet the enemy. They couldn't let the heroes get hurt because the heroes had defended the dignity and glory of the Sui-Yang realm. They shouldn't die a tragic death. From this moment on, the two sides entered an unprecedented chaotic battle. Even the mid-level Earth Saints couldn't stop them. At this time, the 9th Supreme Peak battlefield was in chaos. The stalemate between the Sui-Yang realm and the 5 elements' secret ground that had been maintained for countless years was finally broken. Lin Feng and Nono didn't realize that they had caused a disaster at all. Instead, they took the opportunity to kill in the chaotic battlefield, reaping the lives of the enemies in large numbers. Every minute, every second, they earned hundreds and even thousands of points. Time passed by minute by minute. 24 hours passed in the blink of an eye. This was already the 3rd day since Lin Feng and Nono entered the Supreme Peak battlefield. The fierce battle had already been going on for 12 hours. The Supreme Peak Supremes who were in various positions of the Supreme Peak battlefield were all gathered in the center of the battlefield. This super large-scale battle could only be described as tragic. The number of Supreme Peak Supremes who died on both sides was constantly rising. Fresh blood filled every inch of the battlefield. At the center of the battlefield. No, our efficiency is too low. If this goes on, won't we waste a great opportunity? Lin Feng was a little tired, and his breathing was a little heavy. Nono, why don't we try working together? Nono asked curiously. Boss, how do we work together? With your current size and flying speed, you're not much slower than my top speed. Even if you don't attack, just the huge impact from flying at top speed is enough to kill a Supreme Peak Supremes in an instant. Lin Feng analyzed. And if I use countercurrent, I'll use up a lot of elemental energy. Although I control it well, the speed at which I replenish my elemental energy can't keep up with the speed at which I use it. It'll definitely affect my killing efficiency. Since that's the case, why don't I just stand on your back and use Heaven's Wrath instead of countercurrent? Before Lin Feng could finish, Nono understood what Lin Feng meant. He immediately said excitedly, Boss, that's a good idea. Lin Feng said, Okay, let's do it then. In the next moment, he finished off the enemies around him and flew onto Nono's back. Move! Lin Feng said softly. Nono's huge body immediately flew off at top speed. Skill of Law, Heaven's Wrath. Instantly, countless enemies around Nono were either smashed into meat patties by Nono's huge body or destroyed by the terrifying power transmitted by Lin Feng's heavy sword. No one was lucky enough to survive. This shocking scene immediately frightened all the enemies who were charging at them, and they stood there in a daze. The combination of Lin Feng and Nono wasn't as simple as 1 + 1. The effect of their combination was 10 times that of their individual attacks. Whether it was the attack power or the attack range, it had reached a level that made people despair. With one attack, tens of thousands of lives were reaped. This kind of efficiency couldn't be described as high or low. It could only be described as terrifying, too terrifying. Before the enemies could react, Lin Feng and Nono had already launched their attacks again. Or rather, their attacks didn't stop at all. Every moment, people were dying in their hands. They were like killing machines that were really born for war. In 1 minute, they had slaughtered more than 1.8 million enemies. Under their frenzied slaughter, the surrounding area was quickly cleared, revealing a vacuum zone. Moreover, this vacuum zone was constantly expanding. Although there were new enemies pouring in at every moment, the speed at which they were pouring in could not keep up with the speed at which they were killing the enemies. The enemies who were originally unafraid of death were finally terrified at this moment. Even Han Zhilong and the supreme limits of the Sui-Yang realm felt a surge of fear in their hearts. Finally, some of the supreme limits of the 5 elements' secret ground began to run away. In their eyes, Lin Feng and Nono were no longer human, but demons. Demons that would never tire and never stop crazily reaping their lives. Obviously, Lin Feng and Nuonuo's killing had frightened them. In the face of these two demon-like existences, they no longer had the thought of defending the dignity of the supreme limits of the 5 elements' secret ground. At this moment, they only had one thought: run. Run away from these two demons and never see them again. Once there was a first, there would be a second. When the first extreme supreme had a mental breakdown and ran away like a madman, it was like a catalyst that caused a chain reaction. Therefore, many supreme limits of the 5 elements' secret ground no longer cared about fighting with Lin Feng and Nono. They turned around and ran away. Seeing this scene, many supreme limits of the Sui-Yang realm, as well as Han Zhilong, were stunned. The supreme limits of the 5 elements' secret ground actually ran away. They abandoned their dignity, abandoned their glory, abandoned their pride, and ran away crazily like stray dogs. No matter what the reason was, this was the first time in history. In the ultimate war between the Sui-Yang realm and the 5 elements' secret ground, they won the final victory. Excitement, excitement. All the supreme limits of the Sui-Yang realm were ecstatic. Many of them had participated in the Battle of Longevity more than once, and some had even participated in it more than 10 times or more. They knew the people of the 5 elements' secret ground too well. Those people were extremely proud, and that kind of pride had penetrated their bones. They would rather die than retreat. This was their understanding of the people of the 5 elements' secret ground. However, such a person had been defeated by them. Although it wasn't their contribution, they still felt incomparably proud and relieved. In the future, they could proudly tell others that they had participated in the war that repelled the supreme limits of the 5 elements' secret ground. They had witnessed this miracle with their own eyes. Of course, they knew that it was the 2 figures at the center of the battlefield who had created this miracle. They were the powerful titled powerhouses, Ice Coffin Killing God and Flying Demon God. With extremely respectful eyes, they looked in that direction. Vaguely, they could see the huge figure and the small black dot on the back of the huge figure. Han Zhilong also looked at Lin Feng and Nono excitedly. Without a doubt, with the strength of Lin Feng and Nono, they were definitely the best among the titled powerhouses. After all, even an ordinary titled powerhouse could not repel the supreme limits of the 5 elements' secret ground with their own strength. Thinking of his suggestion to let them accept his protection, Han Zhilong could not help but laugh at himself. Did such experts still need their protection? Even if they really wanted to protect them, did they have the ability to do so? P.S. I have a cold, so I temporarily posted a 4,000-word chapter, coughing while writing and sweating profusely. I can't hold on any longer. Chapter 439. After repelling the 5 elements' secret land, under the leadership of Lin Feng and Nono, the Sui-Yang realm began to counterattack. Because the extreme supremes of the 5 elements' secret land had been scared out of their wits by Lin Feng and Nono, they could only run away in the face of the attacks of the extreme supremes of the Sui-Yang realm. They didn't have the courage to organize an effective resistance and were easily killed. While running away in panic, their morale was high. Although the Extreme Supremes of the Five Elements' secret land outnumbered the Extreme Supremes of the Sui-Yang realm, the result of the battle was unexpected. The Extreme Supremes of the Sui-Yang realm only paid a small price to kill most of the Extreme Supremes of the Five Elements' secret land. The scales of victory tilted towards the Sui-Yang realm. Time didn't stop for a moment. After another 16 hours, this ultimate battle finally ended. The Extreme Supremes of the Five Elements' secret land were all killed, but more than half of the Extreme Supremes of the Sui-Yang realm were left. This was a great victory that was hard to come by in 10,000 years in the Battle of Longevity. It's not time yet, but the enemies are all killed. Linfeng looked at the empty space around him and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Nono winked. Hee, they can only blame themselves for being too weak. Han Zhilong flew over from afar and stood beside Linfeng and Nono. With a happy look, he said with a smile, "You two, it's all thanks to you this time. The Sui-Yang realm hasn't been so glorious for a long time. When we get out, we'll definitely get a lot of military merit." He looked at Linfeng and Nono enviously. "Especially you two. This time, your military merits alone are almost 1/10 of all the Extreme Supremes of the Sui-Yang realm." Linfeng smiled and didn't ask too much about this issue. "However, I still have to remind you of one thing." Han Zhilong's expression became serious. "Go ahead. Although you'll get a lot of military merits this time and will be valued by the Shuntian Prefecture, you'll also be blacklisted by the forces of the Five Elements' secret land. So, you have to be careful in the future. They might send someone to assassinate you," Han Zhilong reminded. Linfeng frowned. "Assassinate? Their people can also enter our Sui-Yang realm?" Han Zhilong muttered. "Although they can't casually enter the Sui-Yang realm, some people can still enter if they pay a certain price. Moreover, there are probably many spies that they have planted in the Sui-Yang realm. If you threaten them to a certain extent, they will destroy you at all costs, even if they lose some of their hidden forces. If that's the case, isn't our situation very dangerous?" Lin Feng's tone became heavy. "There is definitely danger, but you don't have to worry too much. As long as you are careful and don't wander around, they probably can't do anything to you." Han Zhilong comforted. After pondering for a moment, his expression became sacred, and his eyes were fanatical. "You have made great contributions this time, and will definitely be valued by the people above. You will even have the opportunity to join the Shuntian sect. As long as you enter the Shuntian sect, the people of the Five Elements' secret lands will not be able to do anything to you." His tone was full of envy. "Shuntian Prefecture?" Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. "Can you tell me about the situation of the Shuntian Prefecture?" Han Zhilong had long made up his mind to be on good terms with Lin Feng, so he naturally told Lin Feng everything he knew. He explained unhurriedly, "The Shuntian Prefecture belongs to the Shuntian Prefecture, and its sect master is the Prefecture Master of the Shuntian Prefecture, Lord Kong Yuan. The purpose of its existence is to select geniuses from all walks of life, as well as to send generals and talents to the Shuntian Prefecture army to continuously strengthen the Shuntian Prefecture. The people of the Shuntian Prefecture are all geniuses from all walks of life. It can be said that it is the concentration camp of geniuses in the Shuntian Prefecture, and there is no lack of outstanding people. It is the core strength of the Shuntian Prefecture. It seems that the function of the Shuntian Prefecture is similar to the secular imperial power, right?" Han Zhilong was startled. "Although this analogy is a bit strange, it is more or less like that." After a pause, he continued, "As long as you join the Shuntian Prefecture, it proves that you are a member of Lord Kong Yuan's camp. Lord Kong Yuan is at the great perfection of the Earth Saint realm, and his strength is unimaginable. No matter how much the people of the Five Elements' secret grounds hate you, they would not dare to make a move against you in Lord Kong Yuan's territory. However, the conditions to join the Shuntian Prefecture are extremely harsh. There are more than 100 billion experts in the Shuntian Prefecture, but the number of people in the Shuntian Prefecture is less than 100,000. It can be said that they are 1 in a million, and each of them is an elite among elite. They are either people with heaven-defying talent or people with heaven-defying strength. Although your performance on the battlefield is excellent and can be said to be rare in 1,000 years, it is not certain whether you can join the Shuntian Prefecture. I can only say that the hope is very high, but the possibility of failure cannot be ruled out. After Han Zhilong's explanation, Lin Feng had a general understanding of the Shuntian Prefecture. Now that he had earned enough faith crystals and had achieved his goal, he needed to consider what to do next. He wouldn't be able to hide his performance on the battlefield for long. The people from the Five Elements' secret area could send assassins to assassinate him at any time. They might even be on their way now. With his current strength, he wouldn't be able to deal with a high earth saint. Therefore, joining a powerful sect was the best choice. After thinking for a moment, he muttered in his heart, "If this Shuntian Prefecture is really so powerful, there is no harm in joining." As for whether he would fail or not, Lin Feng had never considered this problem. If he did not even have this little confidence, then he might as well go back to the Xingfeng realm and be a local tyrant. Of course, the price to return to the Xingfeng realm was too high. It was far from what Lin Feng could bear now. Many thanks to Brother Han for generously telling me. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said. A smile appeared on Han Zhilong's serious face. Brother Lin is too polite. Even if I did not tell you these things, you will soon know after you go out. Obviously, he was quite happy to be able to receive Lin Feng's gratitude. Although Lin Feng was not a super expert yet, with Lin Feng's talent, even a fool could guess that his future was limitless. If they were on good terms with him now, they might get a lot of benefits in the future. For such a good thing, the more the better. In the next few hours, Han Zhilong and Lin Feng talked for a long time. Most of the time, it was Han Zhilong talking while Lin Feng listened. Although Han Zhilong mostly talked about some general knowledge of the Suiyang realm, this general knowledge was extremely valuable experience for Lin Feng, who had just entered the Suiyang realm. Without this experience, even if Lin Feng's strength was not weaker than a peak mid-level Earth Sage, he would inevitably suffer some hardships. Brother Han, Lin Feng will remember today's kindness, Lin Feng said solemnly. Through the conversation with Han Zhilong, he had a general understanding of the situation in the Suiyang realm. He was not flying around like a headless fly. He already had a plan in mind for his next step. Han Zhilong's face was rosy as if he had drunk a few bottles of wine. He laughed and said, "Ha ha ha. Brother Lin is too polite. I should be the one thanking you. This time, Brother Lin and your partner joined forces to severely damage the Five Elements' secret plane. It can be said that you have done a great service. As the temporary person in charge of Supreme Battlefield No. 9, I can also receive many rewards. It is all thanks to Brother Lin. Please don't say any more words of thanks in the future. Otherwise, I won't have the face to listen to it anymore. By the way, Brother Lin is new here and has no relatives or friends. If you need any help, you can come to me. Although my strength is far inferior to Brother Lin's and I can't help you much, I believe I can still do some small things." Han Zhilong opened his palm and handed a jade slip to Lin Feng. This is a sound transmission jade slip. If Brother Lin wants to find me, you only need to use your mental power to activate the restriction on the jade slip and send me a sound transmission. After receiving the sound transmission jade slip, Lin Feng asked curiously, "A sound transmission jade slip? There is such a magical item in the Suiyang realm?" Han Zhilong smiled and said, "This thing is just an ordinary communication item. It can be bought anywhere and the price is not expensive. If Brother Lin needs it, you can buy some after you go out. It will be convenient for you to contact your friends and relatives in the future. The price is 100 low-level faith crystals. The sound transmission limit is 100 million miles. Beyond this limit, you can no longer receive sound, unless you have a more advanced sound transmission jade slip. Of course, the one in your hand is the child jade slip. The mother jade slip is with me. As long as you leave your mental imprint in the child jade slip, the two can communicate with each other. Well, I won't be long-winded. When the time comes, you can ask someone and they will tell you. Lin Feng roughly understood the function of the sound transmission jade slip. It was a bit like the mother-sun stone in the wind punishment plane, but it had more functions than the mother-sun stone. My time is up. Brother Lin, we will meet again if fate wills it, Han Zhilong suddenly said. The next moment, Han Zhilong's figure suddenly burst into a dim light and disappeared. Lin Feng calculated the time. It seemed that he had stayed on the battlefield for almost 3 days. After Han Zhilong disappeared, Nono asked, "Boss, are we really going to join that Shuntian prefecture sect?" It was used to being free and did not like to join any sect and be restrained. Lin Feng said helplessly, No, our current situation is a bit dangerous. Joining a sect is the best way. But whether we should join or not, we have to find out more about it." From Han Zhilong's words, he understood that the Suiyang realm was extremely large. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was boundless. Let alone him and Nono, even a complete Earth Saint would need a full 10 years to cross the Bloodridge continent without eating or drinking. It should be known that the Bloodridge continent was only composed of 4 continents in the Suiyang realm. The Bloodridge continent was located in the northwest of the Suiyang realm. In addition, there was the Raymond continent in the northeast, the Mulan continent in the south, and the Suiyang continent in the center. Shuntian Prefecture was only one of the 107 prefectures in the Bloodridge continent. It was also a relatively remote place in the Bloodridge continent. Before having enough strength, it was best not to go to other places. The Suiyang realm is the real big stage. Only those who make a name for themselves here are qualified to be called experts. Lin Feng took a deep breath. His calm voice hid a trace of undetectable excitement. Author's note: I thought that I would be lucky this year since it was my zodiac year. Who knew that I would be hospitalized again half a month after leaving the hospital? I caught a bad cold and coughed up blood. The inner walls of my nostrils were festered due to the bacteria in my mucus and the excessive mucus. I had to take all kinds of infusions and medicine. After 3 days of torment and more than 1,000 yuan, I finally understand why everyone hates hospitals so much. Chapter 440. Shuntian Prefecture, Aeon City. Aeon City was one of the 1070 cities in Shuntian Prefecture. Although it was also a city, Aeon City was just a peripheral city. Whether it was its economy or overall strength, it was at the lower end of the 1070 cities. Even the city lord of Aeon City was just an ordinary high earth saint. The city lord's strength was not even comparable to the deputy city lords of the higher rank cities. This was a place that was destined to be neglected. Even if there were 1 or 2 geniuses, it would be difficult for them to achieve anything. Around the supreme teleportation array, people were constantly appearing and being taken away. After giving some instructions, they would be teleported to the battlefield of the Battle of Longevity. The process repeated endlessly as if nothing would change. However, at some point in time, on a huge flat stone screen in the central square of Aeon City, a set of data changed, attracting the attention of everyone around the square. One is 150,000, the other is 230,000. Gosh, our Aeon City has actually produced 2 combat geniuses. Didn't Jianya City have a powerful character before? Ever since then, the people of Jianya City have all been very cocky. Their tails are about to reach the sky. This time, it's our turn to be proud. Look, they've squeezed into the top 10. A reminder suddenly startled everyone. The War Merit List was also known as the War Merit List. The War Merit List was not divided into Peak Supremes, Initial Earth Saints, Intermediate Earth Saints, or High Earth Saints. It only counted the points. Therefore, the War Merit List was a mixed list. The people on the list could be Peak Supremes, Initial Earth Saints, Intermediate Earth Saints, or even High Earth Saints. The entire War Merit List was only ranked by the number of enemies killed. The more enemies killed, the higher the points and the higher the ranking. Most importantly, the War Merit List had existed since ancient times. The records on the list were all created by geniuses a long time ago. Therefore, the further one went, the harder it was to break these records. The top 100 of the War Merit List might be broken every few decades or centuries. However, the top 10 of the War Merit List had not been broken for more than 10,000 years. No one would have thought that on this ordinary day, the top 10 of the War Merit List, which had held the record for more than 10,000 years, would have a new change. Two mysterious combat geniuses had entered the top 10 of the War Merit List one after the other. The change in the War Merit List attracted more and more people's attention. The news spread like wildfire. More and more onlookers gathered in the central square of Aeon City. Unknowingly, the central square, which was usually deserted, was now packed with people. There was no room for more people. They looked at the stone screen enviously. Looking at the rising data and the slowly changing of the rankings, they couldn't help but hold their breaths as if they were the ones who broke the record. The first place was worth 530,000 points, the second place was worth 380,000 points, and the third place was worth 350,000 points. The gap between the fourth place and the 10th place was not that big. The highest was worth 280,000 points, and the lowest was worth 140,000 points. In the eyes of ordinary people, this amount of points was unattainable, extremely terrifying, and unimaginable. However, at this moment, the points of these two mysterious fighting geniuses were rising rapidly, surpassing one rank after another. Fourth place, and is the record that has been held for more than 10,000 years finally going to be broken. Many people remembered that the last time this record was broken was by two mysterious experts more than 10,000 years ago. They didn't know who they were, but they had caused a sensation in Aeon City. Naturally, they remembered it vividly. This time, looking at the speed of the points increase of the two combat geniuses, it was very likely that they would break the record again. What happened more than 10,000 years ago, was it going to happen again today? They were all excited. Although it was hard to believe, they had to believe it because the data on the War Merit List clearly recorded everything. As time passed, the points on the War Merit List kept changing. It was unknown when it started, but it suddenly increased at an amazing speed. The people around were shocked by the terrifying speed of the points increase. The points of the two combat geniuses who were still in the 4th and 6th place increased by leaps and bounds. They suddenly increased from 300,000 to more than 400,000, and then to more than 500,000. Their points didn't stop increasing at all. They were like arrows that were shot out. Almost a quarter of an hour later, the record of the first place was broken. In the next few hours, the points of the first and second place were directly refreshed to a new height, reaching a shocking 4 and 3 million points. The people were already stunned. Although they couldn't see the situation on the battlefield, they could still imagine how high-spirited and heroic the two combat geniuses were on the battlefield. They were infinitely yearning for it. Just when everyone thought that this was their limit, unexpectedly, the points, which were already increasing at a terrifying speed, actually increased by more than 10 times. The data on the stone screen seemed to be undergoing astonishing changes at every moment, causing the jaws of the people around the central square to drop to the ground. After an unknown period of time, the data on the war merit list finally stopped changing. However, the data that represented the first and second place shocked everyone around. They were petrified on the spot. First place on the war merit list, 21.5 million points. Second place on the war merit list, 15.2 million points. These two extremely terrifying data were like a scorching sun in the sky. It was extremely dazzling. Everyone was scared silly by this set of terrifying data. No one knew better than them what this set of data represented. This was the war merit list. The records on it included all the geniuses in history. It could be said that it gathered all the most outstanding combat geniuses in Aeon City since ancient times. Even if Aeon City was just a small border city, it was still a city that was connected to countless planes. There was a steady stream of people joining at every moment. No matter how remote and weak a city was, there would always be some geniuses born. Even if the number was not as high as other cities, the war merit list's record was not so easy to break. Now, not only had the war merit list's record been broken, but the records of the first and second place had also been refreshed to a terrifying height. Compared with this set of data, the original first place on the war merit list, who held the record of 530,000 points, was nothing. The other party's points were not much less than the first place's. Not to mention the first place, even the second place's 15.2 million points were much more than the previous first places. Between the two, it was like an elephant and an ant, a towering tree and a small sapling. There was no comparison at all. Forcing a comparison was simply an insult to the current first and second places combat geniuses. Aeon City Lord's Mansion. City Lord Chen Xing was in an extremely bad mood. It was almost time for the next Shuntian Prefecture's sect examination, and after careful calculation, there was less than a month left. However, his mood was getting worse and worse. This was because he would lose all his face in every Shuntian Prefecture's sect examination. As the number of times increased, he naturally hated this so-called examination. However, the examination was set by the Shuntian Prefecture's Palace Lord, Lord Kong Yuan. As the City Lord of Eternal City, one of the 1070 cities in the Shuntian Prefecture, he did not have the courage to disobey the Palace Lord's orders. Damn it! When he thought of being ridiculed by the other city lords of the other cities, a nameless flame of anger surged in his heart. Most importantly, with his current strength, he was simply not a match for those people. In fact, those people's subordinates had the strength to defeat him. Thus, even if he was angered, he could only swallow it and keep it in his stomach. 1 month. There was only 1 month's time left. However, until now, there had not been any powerful geniuses in Aeon City. Those guys obviously had poor talent, but each of them was as arrogant as a peacock. Every time he saw such people, he could not help but want to slap them to death. But he could not do so. Otherwise, in the Shuntian Prefecture's sect assessment, there would be no one to represent Aeon City. The other city lords would definitely seize the opportunity to ridicule him. Geniuses, where should I go to find such geniuses? Chen Xing sighed, heartbroken. Just as his voice fell, someone knocked on the door outside. The rapid knocking sound entered his ears. Purring, 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 purring. Chen Xing frowned and said in a low voice, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and a middle-aged man in fine armor walked in quickly. He knelt on one knee and said, "City Lord Li Lin, have you forgotten the City Lord Mansion's rules?" Chen Xing narrowed his eyes and said calmly. The middle-aged man was shocked and immediately said, "City Lord, please forgive me." This subordinate received great news and was in a hurry to report it to the City Lord. This subordinate panicked, "City Lord, please forgive this subordinate." Chen Xing looked at him calmly. Then tell me, what is the news that made you so flustered and panicked? If I am not satisfied with what you say, then you can wait to be punished. Hearing this, the middle-aged man hurriedly said, Yes, City Lord. This subordinate just received news that the war merit list's record has been broken. When Chen Xing heard this, he immediately said seriously, Really? It's true, this subordinate went to see for himself just now. The middle-aged man nodded excitedly. That's great. Chen Xing smiled, and the worry on his face disappeared. It is indeed good news, no wonder you are so flustered. All right, this city lord will not pursue your mistake for now. Tell me, what is the rank of the person who broke the record this time? 10th, 9th, or 8th? He looked at the middle-aged man expectantly. No, not 10th, not 9th, not 8th. Could it be the top 5? Chen Xing's eyes brightened, and his tone became more excited. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man still shook his head and said excitedly, It's the 1st and 2nd place. City Lord, the records of the 1st and 2nd place on the war merit list have been broken. This means that 2 peerless geniuses have appeared in Aeon City. Although I don't know if they are cultivation geniuses, they are definitely terrifying combat geniuses. 1st and 2nd place? Chen Xing was stunned for a moment, and then his face turned into ecstasy. The 1st and 2nd place records that have been kept for more than 10,000 years have been broken. This is great. Looking at Chen Xing's expression, the middle-aged man was secretly amused, but he continued, Not only that, the current points of the 1st and 2nd place are extremely high. I'm afraid that in the next 100,000 years or even longer, no one will be able to break it. Taking a deep breath, he slowly reported the data, because the points of the 1st place have reached 21.5 million and the points of the 2nd place have reached 15.2 million. When the city lord, a high-level earth saint, heard these 2 sets of data, he was instantly petrified. Chapter 441. More than 10 million battle points. Chen Xing sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes burning with passion. Are there really such terrifying combat geniuses in this world? More than 10 million battle points, not to mention seeing it. He had never even heard of it. Chen Xing took a deep breath, calming himself down, and asked in a deep voice, Which battlefield are they from? Supreme Limit, Initial Earth Saint, Intermediate Earth Saint, or Advanced Earth Saint? They're from the Supreme Limit battlefield. I think it's Supreme Limit Battlefield number 9. Li Lin said, I just sent someone to inquire about it. We'll have to wait for them to come out before we know the details. Supreme Limit Battlefield, huh? Chen Xing thought for a moment. Send someone immediately. Forget it, I'll go invite them myself. Pausing, there was a trace of excitement in his voice as he muttered, If these 2 combat geniuses join us, then our Aeon City will definitely shine in the Shuntian Prefecture's sect assessment. No matter what, we must do everything we can to invite them to represent Aeon City in this Shuntian Prefecture's sect assessment. Li Lin also said excitedly, Lord, God bless Aeon City, God bless Aeon City. Chen Xing waved his sleeves and said, All right, come with me. Also, send someone to inform the 10 guardians of this news and have them make the necessary preparations. Yes, Lord. Chen Xing was the city lord of Aeon City, and also one of the few advanced Earth Saints in Aeon City. Although he wasn't that strong compared to other cities' advanced Earth Saints, he wasn't someone an ordinary person could compare to. Otherwise, he wouldn't be qualified to sit on the City Lord's seat. The 10 guardians of Aeon City were the 10 advanced Earth Saints under the City Lord. Their strength was slightly weaker than the City Lord, but not by much. When the 10 of them worked together, even Chen Xing would have to avoid them, not daring to fight them head-on. As for the 10 guardians, each of them had their own unique characteristics and were all outstanding individuals. The first guardian was a human-grade craftsman saint who could refine Second Revolution saint artifacts. He wasn't someone a half-baked craftsman saint like Haymi could compare to. The second guardian was a senior doctor. His medical skills were out of this world. The third-ranked guardian was an array master, and his understanding of array formations was unparalleled in the entire Eternal City. In short, every single one of the 10 great guardians could not be underestimated. Even though their combat strength was inferior to Chunxing, their status was not much lower than Chunxing, the city governor. In some aspects, their status was even higher. Even if Chunxing came personally, he would not be able to forcefully order them to do anything. Instead, he would need to invite them. Protectors usually did not show themselves. They would cultivate quietly in the city lord's mansion. They would only appear when the city was in danger. Aeon City's teleportation point. Chunxing led 3 of his subordinates to guard this place, while the surrounding area was cleared out by a group of soldiers. Thousands of soldiers surrounded the area, heavily encircling the area. A chilling aura caused the surrounding people to retreat far away in fear. Some of the newcomers didn't know what was going on, so they were displeased and started to grumble to express their dissatisfaction towards Chunxing. However, the old men beside them looked extremely solemn. Sensing the clamor around them, they immediately berated, "Shut up!" The longer they stayed in the Sui-Yang realm, the stronger they were. After being yelled at by these old men, the newcomers quieted down, but they were still unconvinced in their hearts. "If you don't want to die, shut up." An old man couldn't stand it anymore and said coldly, "Do you know who that lord is?" Without waiting for the others to answer, he answered himself. "He is the city governor of our Aeon City, a super powerhouse who relied on his own talent to cultivate a high-grade Earth Saint. He is the undisputed #1 powerhouse in our Aeon City. He is in charge of 100,000 soldiers in our Aeon City. Even if high-grade Earth Saints from other places came, they would not dare to offend the city governor. If you are tired of living, just pretend I didn't say anything." When the surrounding people heard this, they immediately sucked in a breath of cold air, and the way they looked at Chunxing changed. It was a look of awe, worship, and shock. Chunxing obviously heard the old man's words. In response, he gently shook his head and waved his hand at the old man, saying, "Don't crowd around here. If you have something to say, go to the side and talk." The old man immediately said respectfully, "Yes, city governor." The surrounding people immediately retreated several tens of meters away, before they started discussing again. However, their voices were much softer, and they didn't dare to be as unbridled as they were at the beginning. The ignorant were fearless. After knowing Chunxing's identity, how would they dare to express even the slightest bit of dissatisfaction towards Chunxing? Unless they were tired of living, otherwise they couldn't wait to curry favor with Chunxing. The city governor only appears once in 100 years. Take a guess, why did he come to the teleportation point this time? That's right. In the past, even when the city governor appeared, he would always be alone. He has never made such a big scene before. Look at those soldiers, they are all low-grade Earth Saints, and there are even some mid-grade Earth Saints. I'm afraid they are the legendary elite of Aeon City's 100,000 soldiers, the Blood Suppression Army. Their killing intent is like a rainbow, their morale is like a mountain, their orders are strictly followed, and their movements are consistent. There's no mistaking it, they are definitely the Blood Suppression Army. Oh no, could it be that some enemy wants to attack our Aeon City through the teleportation point? Otherwise, why would the city governor gather the Blood Suppression Army and be on guard? If that's the case, then this is bad. I don't think so. Don't you see that the 10 great guardians are not here? If the enemy is really here, the 10 great guardians would have shown up long ago. If that's not the case, then what happened to make the city governor so alert? The onlookers in the distance immediately broke into a discussion. Time passed slowly, and people appeared one after another beside the teleportation point. Then, they were sent away by Chen Xing's men to avoid crowding. About 6 hours later, there was a slight mysterious fluctuation beside the teleportation point, and then hundreds of people appeared. I'm back alive. Ah. That's great. I killed more than 10 enemies and got more than 10 battle merits. Brother, you're fine, that's great. Father, where's my father? No, he's so powerful, he can't be dead. Among the hundreds of people, some were laughing, some were crying, and there were so many different emotions. Boss. As soon as a young man appeared, he rushed excitedly toward another strange young man who was holding an ice coffin. Wenbing, it's great that you're fine. The young man who was holding the ice coffin was a little thin. When he saw the other young man rushing over, he smiled and let out a sigh of relief. An extremely small demon beast on his shoulder laughed and said, Soldier, how many battle merits did you get this time? Such a strange combination was naturally Linfeng, Nono, and Huang Wenbing. Huang Wenbing raised his eyebrows and smiled proudly. Not much, just over 30,000 points. Boss, Nuonuo, what about you? The content of his words seemed to be very modest, but from his tone, he was extremely proud. Obviously, he should have heard that it was extremely difficult to get 30,000 points in the battlefield. Such a person could definitely be considered a combat genius. Not much, just over 10 million. Nono copied Huang Wenbing's tone and winked. Over 10 million, Huang Wenbing almost couldn't catch his breath. His eyes widened. Over 10 million? Nono, you're bragging too much. He didn't believe that anyone could get so many points. After all, their enemies on the battlefield were people of the same cultivation level as them. To be able to kill more than 10 million powerhouses of the same cultivation level was an incredible feat in anyone's eyes. Nono curled her lips. What's the big deal? It's just over 10 million points. Boss has even more than me. He has over 20 million points. What, over 20 million? Huang Wenbing almost tripped over himself. Yes, over 20 million should be quite a lot, right? Nono said innocently, but with our strength, it shouldn't be a lot, right? Alas, actually we could have gotten more points, but the enemies were all killed. Not a single one is left. We can't continue even if we wanted to. Killed? Huang Wenbing's mouth twitched. Linfeng interrupted their conversation. That's enough. If you have anything to say, say it after we leave this place. Huang Wenbing and Nono both answered honestly and shut their mouth. Although they shut their mouths, the people around them who participated in the battle of immortality with them heard their conversation. At first, no one reacted. But when they heard that Nono and Linfeng had earned over 10 million and 20 million points, they looked at Linfeng, Nono, and Huang Wenbin with disdain. They had seen bragging before, but they had never seen bragging like this. 1 point meant that they had killed an enemy of the same level. 10 million and 20 million points. Didn't that mean that Linfeng and Nono had killed 30 to 40 million enemies of the same level? It was no wonder that they didn't believe it. Even the most powerful of geniuses couldn't do that. Keep bragging, keep bragging. No one will stop you no matter how much you brag. A young man sneered. Linfeng had some impression of this young man. His name should be Cataris. He was a talented young man with a somewhat arrogant personality. Linfeng smiled faintly and didn't argue. Facts spoke louder than words. It was useless to say anything else. It would only be a waste of time. However, Linfeng's silence didn't mean that others wouldn't speak. An old man next to the young man looked at Linfeng more and more seriously, and in the end, he was bewildered. Ice coffin, the old man murmured. His eyes widened as he thought of something. He said in shock, You are the ice coffin killing god. He looked at Nono on Linfeng's shoulder and said with certainty, I can't be wrong. You are the ice coffin killing god, and that monster on your shoulder is the flying divine monster. His face flushed red with excitement, as if he had met some earth-shattering big shot. He murmured excitedly, "I'm actually in the same city as the ice coffin killing god and the flying divine monster. I'm so happy, so happy!" The surrounding people frowned when they saw his strange manner. However, there was also a portion of people who were like the old man. Their expressions changed drastically when they heard about the ice coffin killing god and the flying divine demon. Each and every one of them became excited and agitated, as if they had taken some stimulant. These people had one thing in common. They were all peak supremes. The surrounding earth saints looked at them in confusion. They couldn't understand why they were so excited. Ice coffin killing god, flying divine monster. Huang Wenbing looked at Lin Feng and Nono in a daze. His mouth was wide open. "Boss, Nono, they can't be talking about you, right?" Chapter 442. Ice Coffin Killing God? Flying Divine Demon? Lin Feng was startled. "I think he's talking about me and Nono." He remembered that Han Zhilong had addressed them that way when they first met. However, he had changed the way he addressed them after they got to know each other better. Huang Wenbing immediately said in admiration, "Boss is indeed boss." He actually became a titled powerhouse the first time he entered the battlefield. Lin Feng had also heard of titled powerhouses. However, he hadn't received any actual benefits yet, so he didn't take it to heart. He smiled faintly and said, "It's not as exaggerated as you think. It's just a title." The young man named Cataris saw that Lin Feng had stolen his prestige and was immediately dissatisfied. He said again, "What titled powerhouse? Isn't he just an ultimate supreme? No matter how powerful he is, can he be more powerful than a beginner Earth Saint? Everyone below the Earth Saint realm is an ant. In my opinion, no matter how powerful you are, you're just a slightly stronger ant." And Lin Feng looked at Cataris with a strange expression. After living for so long and fighting so many people, this was the first time he had heard someone say such things about him. However, he had no interest in dealing with such a clown. On the contrary, the old man who had recognized Lin Feng and Nono at first glance was furious. It was as if Cataris wasn't insulting Lin Feng, but himself. He said with incomparable anger, "You're not allowed to insult the ice coffin killing god and flying divine demon." The rest of the Ultimate Supreme also stood up and roared, "You're not allowed to insult the ice coffin killing god and flying divine demon. Do you want to die?" Cataris was also shocked. He didn't understand why these strangers were so protective of Lin Feng and Nono. Of course, he didn't understand the status of Lin Feng and Nono in the supreme battlefield of Limits Number 9. It was a supreme existence that represented the pride and glory of all the ultimate supremes in the supreme battlefield of Limits Number 9. In other places, Lin Feng might not be able to speak, but in Supreme Limit Battlefield Number 9, Lin Feng was the one and only king. He had unparalleled authority, and even became the spiritual faith of these Supreme Limit Supremes. His words were definitely more effective than anyone else's. Forget it. If he wants to talk, then let him talk. There's no need to be so calculative. Lin Feng had a good impression of the old man and shook his head with a smile. When the old man heard this, he glared fiercely at Cataris and immediately said respectfully, "Yes." Cataris stared at Lin Feng. His eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed. However, before he could do anything, a hearty laugh was heard. "Ha! Ha! No wonder they are ranked first and second on the war merit list. Their magnanimity is admirable." This voice attracted everyone's attention. When everyone looked over, they found that they were surrounded by many soldiers. Not even a fly could escape. Their faces changed drastically. Cataris also frowned deeply, and a trace of fear flashed across his eyes. "You are?" Lin Feng remained calm and asked with a smile. On the surface there was no change, but in his heart he was secretly shocked. A high-grade Earth Saint. This mysterious person was definitely a high-grade Earth Saint. Moreover, his strength was not inferior to the complete Saint soul of the high-grade Earth Saint he met in the Earthsea Cave. He might even be stronger. Aeon City's City Lord, Chen Xing. Chen Xing smiled faintly and walked over. I came specially to welcome the two of you and invite you to participate in the Shuntian Prefecture's assessment. Linfeng looked at Chen Xing in surprise. Senior is the City Lord of Aeon City? Chen Xing smiled faintly. There is only one City Lord in Aeon City, and that is me, Chen Xing. Linfeng, Huang Wenbing, and the rest exchanged a glance and cupped their fists together. Greetings, City Lord. Waving his hand lightly, Chen Xing said, as I said earlier, I came here specially to welcome the two of you. After a pause, he looked around. It's not convenient to talk here. Can the two of you follow me to the City Lord Mansion? As he said that, he sized up Linfeng, the most terrifying combat genius in Aeon City's history. He wanted to see what was different about him. After pondering for a moment, Linfeng cupped his fists and said, I couldn't ask for more. You know I'm strong, but you're neither servile nor overbearing. You don't have the slightest bit of fear. Truly extraordinary. Chen Xing praised inwardly and nodded. All right, please follow me. Linfeng suddenly said, Wait. Chen Xing turned around and asked, Is there anything else? It's like this is my friend, Huang Wenbing. I hope he can come with us to the City Lord Mansion. Linfeng said. Since he's your friend, of course there's no problem. Chen Xing smiled and said, He's ranked first on the war merit list. Such a small request is naturally not a problem. Soon, Linfeng, Nono, and Huang Wenbing followed City Lord Chen Xing out of the teleportation point and into the City Lord Mansion. As for Cataris, he was so scared that his face was drained of blood. He didn't dare to cause any more trouble. As soon as Linfeng and the rest left, he hurriedly left. As soon as they left, only the onlookers were left. They were puzzled when they saw that the City Lord had come here just to welcome two Peak Supreme Beings. However, when they learned that these two Peak Supreme Beings were the two monsters on the war merit list, they were immediately moved and understood the City Lord's actions. They understood why the City Lord had made such a big scene. For such monstrous geniuses, it was not excessive to make a big scene. After entering the City Lord Mansion, Linfeng and the rest were led to the City Lord Mansion's main hall. Gentlemen, what tea would you like to drink? After everyone sat down, Chen Xing asked. There's no need for tea. City Lord, please tell us what you're here for first. Linfeng said seriously. Chen Xing smiled and said, Since the ice coffin killing god is so straightforward, then I won't hide it. Actually, as I said just now, the main reason why I'm looking for you is to invite you to participate in the Shuntian Prefecture's sect examination. What do you two think? City Lord, there's no need to call us that. My name is Linfeng, and Nono is my contracted demon beast. You can just call us by our names. Linfeng said, then pondered and said, As for participating in the Shuntian Prefecture's sect examination, to be honest, City Lord, we've actually considered this before. It's just that we don't know enough about the Shuntian Prefecture's sect, so we haven't made a decision yet. What's the matter? Tell me, maybe I'll know a little. Chen Xing said. Hearing this, Linfeng pondered for a moment, then asked, I want to know the specific rules of the Shuntian Prefecture's sect and the rules of the examination. You've asked the right person. As for the rules of the Shuntian Prefecture, other than the people of the Shuntian Prefecture, no one knows it better than us City Lords. Chen Xing laughed and said, The Shuntian Prefecture's sect is called the Shuntian Sect, and the sect master is our Shuntian Prefecture's sect master, Kong Yuan. You should already know this, so I won't say more. Next, I'll tell you about the internal situation of the Shuntian sect. Pausing for a moment, Chen Xing slowly continued, in the Shuntian sect, under the sovereign, there are 3 grand elders and 10 peak lords. Each peak lord is in charge of a mountain peak, and each mountain peak has a peak lord as well as 10 grand elders. Under the grand elders, there are a few vice elders and deacons. These are considered the highest level of power in the Shuntian sect. However, the backbone of the Shuntian sect is not these grand elders, but the many disciples. The Shuntian sect has 4 levels of disciples: outer disciples, inner disciples, core disciples, and true disciples. Although the majority of these disciples are inferior to the deacons and elders, there are a small number of core disciples whose status is comparable to the elders, or even slightly higher. As for the true disciples, there are only a few in the entire Shuntian sect, and these few are the top geniuses of the Shuntian prefecture. They are the most outstanding existences in the billions of worlds, and their status is not inferior to any of the peak masters. Moreover, their potential is limitless, and they are the future successors of the Shuntian sect. They are also known as the young sect master. Speaking up to here, his tone became excited, and he said with incomparable reverence, "Every young sect master possesses terrifying strength, and they are definitely the cream of the crop among the high-level Earth Saints. Moreover, every one of them has limitless potential, and there is hope for them to break through to the great circle of the Earth Saint realm." Although he was also a high-level Earth Saint, in front of the young sect master, he could only be killed in an instant. His emotions slowly calmed down, and he looked at Lin Feng with a burning gaze. "Lin Feng, with your talent, as long as you are willing to cultivate diligently, perhaps in a few 100,000 years, or even a few million years, you will be able to enter the ranks of the true disciples and become the great young sect master." A few 100,000 years? A few million years? Hearing these 2 numbers, Lin Feng opened his mouth, but in the end, he weakly swallowed back his words. He was only in his 20s, and hearing such a terrifying number was indeed a little shocking. However, he did not linger on this question, and instead changed the topic. "Then if I join the Shuntian sect, can I still leave the Shuntian prefecture?" "Leave the Shuntian prefecture?" Chen Xing was stunned for a moment. "Of course you can. The Shuntian sect does not restrict the freedom of the disciples. As long as the Shuntian sect holds a few large-scale events, all disciples are required to participate. Moreover, if you become a core disciple, you can basically ignore these rules, and no one will care about you. Unless it is an extremely important event, otherwise, even if you run to another continent, no one will say anything." Lin Feng breathed a sigh of relief. "Why do you want to leave the Shuntian prefecture?" Chen Xing curiously asked. "The headquarters of the Shuntian sect is in the Shuntian prefecture. If you leave, not only will you not receive many resources, it will also be far safer than staying here. Why do you want to leave?" Lin Feng was not willing to reveal too much, and only gave a perfunctory answer. "Because of some personal matters, I have to go somewhere else." Chen Xing did not pursue the matter. Everyone had their own secret. Although he was curious, he knew how to restrain himself. "Then, have you decided to participate in the Shuntian sect's examination?" Chen Xing said so much just for this purpose. With such an outstanding combat prodigy in front of him, how could he let it go? Seeing the look of anticipation on Chen Xing's face, Lin Feng took a deep breath, looked at Huang Wenbing and slowly said, "If Wenbing can also pass the examination, then there will definitely be no problems here." He was not worried about Nono. It did not matter if Nono participated in the examination or not. In any case, Nono was his contracted demonic beast. Even if it did not participate in the examination, no one would dare to say anything if it followed him into the Shuntian sect. But Huang Wenbing was different. He was not sure if Huang Wenbing could pass the examination. Chen Xing frowned and asked, "How many battle points did he get this time?" Huang Wenbing hurriedly said, Over 30,000. He could not help but clench his fists. I'm sorry, boss. I lost face for you. Over 30,000? Chen Xing looked at Huang Wenbing with surprise. This result is already not bad. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is a combat prodigy. Although he is far from being comparable to you, if he participates in the examination and enters the Shuntian sect, there will definitely be no problems. Chapter 443. Huang Wenbing being able to obtain more than 30,000 battle points in 3 days was already very good, but compared to the two monstrous geniuses Lin Feng and Nono, it was not as shocking. I almost forgot, you were in the low-level Earth Saint battlefield, and the enemies you killed were all low-level Earth Saints. Only then did Lin Feng react, looking at Huang Wenbing in astonishment. You killed more than 30,000 low-level Earth Saints. It seems I have been underestimating your strength. Huang Wenbing scratched his head in embarrassment. I didn't expect those low-level Earth Saints to be so weak. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. It's not that they are weak, but you are strong. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes as he thought to himself, didn't Wenbing become a saint by refining a saint godhead? Why is he so strong? This was different from the information he had learned from that person. Secretly paying attention to this question, Lin Feng turned to Chen Xing and asked, Castellan, I heard that battle points can be used to exchange for faith crystals. Where should we go to exchange for them? That's right, battle points can be exchanged for faith crystals. Chen Xing nodded, but as if he suddenly thought of something, he said awkwardly, Your battle points are too high. If you use them all to exchange for faith crystals, I'm afraid the Castellan Manor won't have enough faith crystals. Can you change the exchange method? For example, exchange for some precious materials, is that okay? The Castellan Manor had always been in charge of exchanging battle points for faith crystals and other items, but Lin Feng and Nono's battle points were too terrifying. Even a city like the Aeon City could not take out so many faith crystals in a short time. One battle point could be exchanged for 100 low-level faith crystals. Lin Feng and Nono's battle points added up to more than 36 million, close to 37 million. Exchanging for low-level faith crystals, it was equivalent to 37 billion low-level faith crystals. This was a terrifying amount of wealth. In the entire Aeon City, no one could take out so many faith crystals in one go, not even Chen Xing, the Castellan. Hearing Chen Xing's words, Lin Feng frowned slightly and asked doubtfully, Is there not enough faith crystals in the City Lord's mansion? Brother Lin, although I'm the city master of Aeon City, I only have about 8,000 high-grade faith crystals. If I exchange them for low-grade faith crystals, it's only about 80 million. The entire City Master's mansion only has about 2 billion low-grade faith crystals. So, even if I want to exchange them for you, I can't do it. Chen Xing said helplessly, so I suggest that Brother Lin change the exchange method. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for me to apply for a batch of faith crystals. Lin Feng muttered, Actually, I don't know exactly how many faith crystals I need, because I'm exchanging faith crystals mainly to save people. Save someone? Chen Xing glanced at the ice coffin beside Lin Feng. Is it this lady? Lin Feng nodded calmly, it's her. Most of her life force was absorbed by the Earth Saint's remnant soul. Later, she was seriously injured and fell into a deep sleep. According to the information I received, only faith crystals can stop the loss of her life force. So, I need faith crystals, a large number of faith crystals. Chen Xing asked tentatively, May I ask who she is to you? She is a friend of mine. Lin Feng couldn't explain his relationship with Jing Ting for a while, so he could only vaguely mention it. Sir City Master, do you have a way to wake her up? Her life force was absorbed. Chen Xing muttered, In fact, this situation is common in the Sui-Yang realm. It's not too serious. Although I don't know the specific situation of your friend, it shouldn't be far from it. How about this? I'll ask the guardian of the art of medicine to come over and take a look. He should have a way to wake your friend up. Lin Feng was overjoyed. He stood up and cupped his fists solemnly. Thank you, Sir City Master. Chen Xing smiled. Brother Lin, you don't have to be so polite. He stood up. Wait here for a moment. I'll go get him. Lin Feng and Huang Wenbing said in unison, Okay. After Chen Xing left, Lin Feng turned his head. His gentle gaze fell on the ice coffin emitting a cold aura. His gaze passed through the transparent coffin lid and stared at the beautiful woman inside. Boss, don't worry. Sister-in-law will definitely be cured. Nono comforted. Huang Wenbing nodded firmly, yes. Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who said she's your sister-in-law? However, his current relationship with Jing Ting was a little unclear. He glared fiercely at Huang Wenbing and Nono, then shook his head. I hope she can really recover. Not long after, Chen Xing returned with an old man by his side. This is one of the 10 guardians of Aeon City, the guardian of the medical path, Ming Zun. Chen Xing introduced with a smile. Ming Zun, this is little brother Lin Feng that I mentioned to you. Next to him is his friend, Huang Wenbing, who is quite talented in combat. The contracted demon beast on his shoulder is called Nono. Greetings, Lord Ming Zun. Lin Feng and the others cupped their fists. Ming Zun nodded indifferently. Then, his gaze shifted to the ice coffin. He asked in a hoarse voice, Is this the person you want to save? Lin Feng nodded. May I ask if Lord Ming Zun has a way? Open the coffin lid. Ming Zun didn't answer. Instead, he ordered. Lin Feng nodded to Huang Wenbing, motioning for him to open the coffin lid. After the lid was opened, Ming Zun took a few steps closer. After carefully observing for a moment, his frown deepened. Seeing this, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that even Earth Saint-level doctors can't save her? In an instant, his heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Ming Zun, what's the situation? Chen Xing frowned and asked softly. Ming Zun slowly got up. His face was pale as he turned to look at Lin Feng. When he saw that Lin Feng didn't seem to have any intention of entertaining him, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. However, his expression didn't change for the better. His voice was extremely gloomy as he said, You really didn't ask me to come here to entertain me? Chen Xing was stunned. He asked in confusion, What do you mean? Ming Zun snorted. This little girl's life force has indeed been devoured. However, she doesn't seem to have any special injuries. This kind of injury can be healed with any medicine that contains the power of faith. In fact, she only needs one high-grade faith crystal to completely heal her injury. Why did you ask me to come here for such a small injury? Chen Xing turned to look at Lin Feng. Brother Lin, your friend only has a small injury? Lin Feng looked at Ming Zun and then at Chen Xing. Seeing that they didn't seem to care about Jing Ting's injury, he said awkwardly, I don't know much about the faith crystal, and I don't know much about the power of Earth Saints. That's why I didn't know that the faith crystal could heal her injury. I'm sorry for troubling the both of you. Ming Zun looked deeply at Lin Feng. I hope you're not lying. After that, he turned around and left. Ming Zun, I didn't understand the situation clearly this time. I'm sorry. Chen Xing shouted at Ming Zun's back. He then turned to look at Lin Feng. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Brother Lin, oh Brother Lin, you're really... Halfway through his sentence, he shook his head and said, Forget it. You should save your friend first. This is a high-grade faith crystal. Take it first. Chen Xing's hand shook slightly. He threw a crystal-clear stone that was emitting wisps of holy white light over to Lin Feng. Lin Feng immediately caught it. He thanked Chen Xing and then put it into Jing Ting's mouth. As soon as the high-grade faith crystal entered Jing Ting's mouth, it released thousands of times the power of faith crystal. It immediately stopped the loss of life force in her body and replenished it at an even faster speed. The injuries to her internal organs were also recovering at an astonishing speed. It was as if she had eaten a miraculous elixir. Lin Feng, who had been observing Jing Ting's condition, saw that her face was gradually becoming rosy, and the trace of worry between her eyebrows was smoothed away by an unknown force. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. It worked. After arriving at the Sui-Yang realm, his heart that had always been tense finally relaxed. "How is it, Brother Lin? It worked, didn't it?" Chen Xing asked with a smile. Lin Feng stood up and cupped his fists gratefully. "Thank you, City Lord." Chen Xing waved his hand and said, "What are you thanking me for? I didn't do anything." After a pause, he reminded in a low voice, "By the way, Brother Lin, I have to remind you of something. As long as you cultivate to the Earth Saint realm, as long as you don't suffer any particularly serious injuries or directly damage your soul, you can use the faith crystal to recover. The higher the grade of the faith crystal, the better the effect. Therefore, at our level, we rarely need to seek a doctor because we can recover most of our injuries by ourselves. Whether it is cultivation, mental strength recovery, yuan qi recovery, or healing injuries, the faith crystal is indispensable. This is also the fundamental reason why the faith crystal has such a high status in the Sui-Yang realm. In the future, if you encounter such a situation again, you don't need to seek a doctor anymore. Otherwise, it will be easy to become a joke. Lin Feng knew that Chen Xing was saying this for his own good. He gladly accepted. "I will remember the City Lord's reminder." "Boss, I seem to have an impression of this matter," Nono said. "I didn't think of it before, but after the City Lord's reminder, I also remember. Not only that, I know more." Huang Wenbing rolled his eyes. "Nono, are you giving advice after the fact? What did you say? How dare you talk to your second brother Nono like that?" Nono immediately blew his beard and glared, even though he didn't have a beard. "That's enough, you two." Lin Feng was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly turned to look at the ice coffin. His eyes lit up. "You're awake." Nono and Huang Wenbing also stopped bickering and looked over. In the ice coffin, the woman's eyelids and eyelashes trembled slightly. She slowly opened her eyes. There was no focus in her eyes, and her expression was slightly confused. Feeling everyone's gaze on her, especially Lin Feng's gentle gaze, the woman slowly woke up and asked doubtfully, "I'm not dead yet? You're still alive, my boss saved you." Nono laughed mischievously. "Sister-in-law, you don't know, in order to save you, my boss," Lin Feng glared at Nono. "Nono, don't talk nonsense." Nono innocently closed his mouth and muttered softly, "She's my sister-in-law, I'm not talking nonsense." Hearing this, Lin Feng helplessly shook his head and looked at the woman again. "Nono likes to talk nonsense, I hope you don't mind." Chapter 444. The woman wasn't embarrassed or annoyed. She looked at Lin Feng with eyes as gentle as water and said in an extremely gentle voice, "I don't mind." Lin Feng had never had any experience in the field of relationships, so he braced himself and laughed dryly, "Haha." Huang Wenbing couldn't help but shake his head. Boss actually knows how to be shy. It's too strange. Regardless of what others thought, Lin Feng took a deep breath and said, "Miss Jing, your injuries are now healed. What do you plan to do next? Right, this is the Sui-Yang realm. If you want to return to the Xingfeng Plain, I'm afraid you won't be able to do so in a short time." Sui-Yang realm? Jing Ting's delicate eyelashes trembled slightly. She looked at Lin Feng with a trace of doubt in her eyes. Lin Feng nodded. "Yes, your injuries are too serious and require a large number of faith crystals to heal. However, there aren't many faith crystals in the Xingfeng Plain, so it's impossible to heal your injuries. Therefore, I took the liberty of bringing you to the Sui-Yang realm. I hope you can forgive me for that." Jing Ting smiled. "It's all right. The Sui-Yang realm it is." Her smile was like a blooming white lotus, pure and beautiful. Lin Feng asked. Then what do you plan to do? Jing Ting pursed her lips, seeming to find it difficult to speak. After hesitating for a moment, she finally mustered up her courage. Can I stay by your side? Lin Feng was startled. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, yes. Since he was the one who brought Jing Ting to the Suiyang realm, he naturally wouldn't drive her away. Moreover, Jing Ting was just a weak woman. The Suiyang realm was full of dangers. If she was left to wander alone in the Suiyang realm, there was no telling what would happen. For a moment, a charming smile bloomed on this pure and clear woman's face, causing Lin Feng to become absent-minded for a moment. What a gentle and pure woman! Chen Xing couldn't help but be secretly surprised. She's worthy of Brother Lin. After solving Jing Ting's problem, Lin Feng looked at Chen Xing with a solemn expression and asked, Sir City Lord, I wonder if I can keep the points temporarily and use them to exchange for items when I need them in the future? Chen Xing nodded and said, of course. Everyone must participate in the Battle of Longevity once every 10,000 years. Therefore, your contribution points will always be there. You can also go to the battlefield store in the area under the jurisdiction of the City Lord Manor to exchange for the things you need at any time. You just need to show your World Battlefield token. Of course, these points can only be exchanged within Suiyang. You can't use these points to exchange at Jinyan and other secret places, right? Haha, City Lord, you must be joking. Lin Feng smiled and said, in that case, I'll exchange for faith crystals worth 1,000 battle merits for the time being. I'll save the rest for later when I need them. Since Millennium City didn't have enough faith crystals, then he wouldn't make things difficult for Chen Xing. Since Chen Xing helped him, then he would naturally return the favor. Sure enough, upon hearing Lin Feng's words, Chen Xing breathed a sigh of relief and cast a grateful smile at Lin Feng, saying, many thanks, Brother Lin. 10 million battle merits were equivalent to 1 billion low-grade faith crystals, 10 million mid-grade faith crystals, 100,000 high-grade faith crystals, and 1,000 top-grade faith crystals. However, top-grade faith crystals were extremely rare and rarely circulated on the market. Only a very small number of powerful high-grade Earth Saints and perfect stage Earth Saints had top-grade faith crystals in their hand. Generally, they could only exchange for high-grade faith crystals at the battlefield store in the area under the jurisdiction of the City Lord Manor. If one wanted top-grade faith crystals, they could only find some large chamber of commerce or some super expert. Over the next few days, Chen Xing settled Lin Feng's group in the City Lord Manor and settled Lin Feng's matter. Lin Feng, Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and Nono each had their own Sun-Mother stones for future communication. In addition, Lin Feng exchanged 100,000 high-grade faith crystals, of which 90,000 were evenly distributed to Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and Nono, leaving only 10,000 for himself. There were still more than 20 days before the Shuntian sect's assessment. At that time, they only needed to depart 10 days in advance. Thus, the group would stay in Millennium City for another 10 days. Huang Wenbing and Nono couldn't stand loneliness, so after staying in the City Lord Manor for 3 days, they went out for a stroll. Jing Ting's temperament was tranquil, and she didn't care much about worldly matters. Thus, she stayed in the manor to accompany Lin Feng. At first, Lin Feng wasn't used to it, but as time passed, he was no longer so restrained. On the contrary, with such a great beauty in front of him, his mood was inexplicably much better. On this day, Lin Feng felt a sudden impulse to sense his comprehension of the various laws, but the result gave him a fright. The law of space. He murmured in surprise. I actually comprehended 95%. During this period of time, he didn't do anything, nor did he deliberately comprehend the laws. However, the law of space was like water flowing through a canal, directly comprehending 95%, reaching the highest level of all the laws. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel surprised. Instead, he broke out in cold sweat, thinking that there was something wrong with his cultivation. He carefully sensed and confirmed that he had comprehended 95% of the law of space without a doubt. His brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Now, he had comprehended 95% of the law of space, 25% of the law of amplitude, 20% of the law of soul and time, 15% of the law of strength, and 10% of the law of life and gravity. The law of amplitude, which he spent the most effort on comprehending, had only risen by 5%. On the contrary, the law of space, which he didn't spend much effort on comprehending, had advanced by leaps and bounds, nearing perfection. If he didn't figure out the situation, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to cultivate in peace. Number 1. Lin Feng directly summoned Number 1 in his mind. Now that Number 1 had materialized and become a real existence, Number 1 seemed to have evolved as well. It could directly communicate with Lin Feng in the outer space, and was no longer limited to Number 1. Master. Number 1's voice was still indifferent and emotionless. Did anything happen to Number 1 recently? Why did my law of space suddenly improve so much? Lin Feng asked. Nothing happened to Number 1, but according to my analysis, the reason why Master's law of space improved so much should be related to the space origin, Number 1 said indifferently. The space origin helps Master improve his comprehension of the law of space. Even if Master doesn't deliberately comprehend it, it will unknowingly have an impact. Master need not worry. The space origin? It's actually that powerful. Lin Feng's expression became serious. It seems that we underestimated its function before. If there's a chance in the future, I must find out what it is and why it has such an effect. Since there was no problem with his cultivation, Lin Feng was no longer worried. He said to Number 1, "All right, I'm fine. You can go back." Although Number 1 existed in an incomprehensible way, Lin Feng was not confident that others could not detect its existence. Therefore, in front of outsiders, Lin Feng would try his best not to contact Number 1, and would not even enter Number 1. The Suiyang realm was too big, and there were all kinds of experts, including the legendary Saint Kings. Lin Feng did not know what methods these experts had. Therefore, the best way was to avoid contact with Number 1 in front of outsiders as much as possible, and not enter Number 1. This way, he could keep this secret to the greatest extent. 95%. Lin Feng clenched his fist. If I can comprehend a complete 100%, can I use it to forge a saint weapon? The lowest level of craftsman saint, which was the human-level craftsman saint, had to comprehend a complete law. However, Lin Feng had comprehended the hybrid law, which was formed by the fusion of the 7 strongest laws. Therefore, he had no confidence at all. If he could forge a saint weapon, then he would have another trump card, a trump card that would allow him to dominate the world. Regardless of whether it works or not, I'll first comprehend the law of space to 100%. Lin Feng made up his mind. He temporarily stopped comprehending the law of amplitude and changed to comprehending the law of space. This was the most important thing at the moment. In the distance, Jing Ting's elegant face revealed a hint of surprise. She muttered in confusion, was he talking to someone just now? The more she interacted with Lin Feng, the more she felt that Lin Feng was too mysterious. By the way, when I first comprehended the hybrid law and separated the 7 laws, it was all thanks to the power of faith that Jing Ting gave me. Does that mean I can also use the power of faith to comprehend the laws? Lin Feng was no longer the rookie from back then. He more or less knew some things about the Earth Sage and the power of faith. He also knew that the faint white glow emitted by Jing Ting's zither was the power of faith. Let's give it a try. There's nothing to lose if we fail anyway. Only when one reached the Earth Sage level could one use the power of faith. This was common knowledge that everyone in the world knew. With a flip of his palm, a high-grade power of faith crystal appeared in Lin Feng's palm. He sat cross-legged under an ancient tree and slowly closed his eyes. He naturally released his mental power, which enveloped the area within 10 meters of his body. Surprisingly, the high-grade power of faith crystal miraculously released a white brilliance. It was the power of faith. Moreover, it was an extremely pure power of faith. Its degree of richness was simply unbelievable. In just a short while, the volume of the high-grade power of faith crystal had shrunk by nearly 1/10. A trace of joy quietly crept onto Linfeng's face. He never expected that he could really draw the power of faith from the power of faith crystal. Even more so, he didn't expect that the power of faith crystal would actually help him comprehend the laws. Although it was only a short while, he could clearly feel that the speed of his comprehension of the laws of space had increased by another level. At this speed, it would take less than 10 days for his comprehension of the laws of space to reach perfection. Great! This unexpected discovery allowed Linfeng to find a brand new path of cultivation. It also strengthened his confidence in comprehending the hybrid law to perfection. Time passed quietly. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed like flowing water. The laws of space have finally reached perfection. Linfeng, who had been sitting cross-legged under the ancient tree for 10 days and 10 nights, suddenly opened his eyes. A wisp of light flashed and disappeared. Although my strength hasn't improved because of this, I can try to refine a sacred tool. A smile appeared on his lips. I hope my guess is correct. He stood up and moved his body. His whole body emitted popping sounds. After scanning the interspatial ring with his mental power, Linfeng was suddenly stunned. I actually spent so many high-grade power of faith crystals. In just 10 days, he had consumed more than 200 high-grade power of faith crystals. Chapter 445. He had spent more than 200 high-grade faith crystals to comprehend the law of space to perfection, and most of the credit was due to the source of space. It could be seen how terrifying the faith power consumed to comprehend the law of space was. It was simply burning money. If it wasn't for the battle of longevity, Linfeng didn't know how long it would take him to gather 200 high-grade faith crystals. Relying on oneself to comprehend the nature of heaven and earth to improve one's comprehension of the law of space was naturally far slower than with the help of faith power. Faith crystals, especially mid-grade or high-grade faith crystals, were very extravagant for most earth saints in the Sui-Yang realm. That was why people's cultivation speed was so slow. I can see that it's too difficult for ordinary people to make a name for themselves in the Sui-Yang realm. Linfeng sighed. What were cultivation resources? This was it. Those who were born with endless resources and could consume faith crystals without scruples, even if their talents were not as good as others, their cultivation speed was still not weak. Coupled with the fact that they could come into contact with all kinds of esoteric law skills at any time, their power was peerless. How could ordinary people compare to the combination of the two? Linfeng had gone on a killing spree in the Supreme Limit's battlefield in order to save Jingting, but he had inadvertently made the right move. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at the elegant woman sitting in the distance with a smile on his face. Jingting was really his lucky star. She had saved the lives of Black Rice, Huang Wenbing, and others in the Xingfeng realm. She still brought him good luck in the Sui-Yang realm. Retracting his gaze, Linfeng carefully sensed the situation in his body and found that his physical body and mental strength had undergone earth-shaking changes. His physical body had reached the supreme limit a long time ago. Now, it had improved again on the basis of the supreme limit. It was as if he had broken through some kind of barrier and reached an even more terrifying height. Looking at the data listed by number 1, he could feel how terrifying it was more directly. 123050p, this was the strength of his physical body. Based on his physical body alone, he was comparable to a powerhouse who had just entered the Earth Saint realm. As for his spiritual power, it had increased from 105,300 P to 205,300 P. It had almost doubled. The strengthening of my physical body has increased my combat prowess once again. Lin Feng couldn't help but clench his fists as excitement flashed in his eyes. Just my physical body alone is enough to fight against a beginner Earth Saint. If I combine it with Countercurrent, Earth's Wrath, and Heaven's Wrath, as well as an even stronger mental force, even a mid-Earth Saint would be unable to withstand a single blow from me. High-tier Earth Saint. My strength is definitely comparable to an ordinary high-tier Earth Saint. Although mental strength could not directly increase one's combat strength, the stronger one's mental strength was, the easier it would be for Lin Feng to control every detail of the battle. This was what people often said about observation. Making another breakthrough before the assessment would undoubtedly increase his own bargaining chip. Boss. Boss. Huang Wenbing and Nono walked over from afar. One man and one bird, both with smiles on their faces. The local customs of Aeon City had clearly brought them a pleasant experience. Lin Feng came back to his senses and smiled. Have you guys had enough fun? It's not that we've had enough fun. It's the city lord who sent someone to look for us. He said that we're about to set off. Huang Wenbing shook his head. Lin Feng's eyebrows twitched. So soon? Didn't they say that 10 days would be enough? There's still half a month before the assessment begins, right? Hee, I knew you'd ask that. Chen Xing's voice rang out behind Huang Wenbing and Nono. Without them noticing, he had already entered the small courtyard and was walking towards Huang Wenbing. He smiled and said, "The reason why we set off early is because the teleportation portal in the city has already been activated. Every city has 2 teleportation portals. One is the teleportation portal in the realm, and the other is the teleportation portal in the city. These teleportation portals are naturally formed by the heavens and earth. They cannot be destroyed, nor can they be repaired. The number of teleportation portals will not increase, nor will they decrease. Even existences like Kong Yuan can only temporarily activate the teleportation portals in the city. It is said that only the legendary Saint Kings can freely control the teleportation portals, but even they cannot create new ones. Teleportation arrays are naturally formed? Lin Feng was stunned. Even a Saint King cannot set up a teleportation array? Chen Xing nodded. The law of space is one of the 7 strongest laws. Even though there's only 1 in 100 million who can comprehend the law of space, there are still a few among the billions of people in the Suiyang realm who have the talent for the law of space. Among them, there are even invincible experts at the great circle of the Earth Saint realm. However, the law of space contained in the teleportation array is not the normal law of space. It's a more profound and mysterious existence. It's said that it's above the laws. Rules. Rules. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. Rules are more powerful than laws? I don't know how to explain this, but I'm sure that rules are much more powerful than laws. Laws are just the natural laws of heaven and earth, but rules are the operation of the entire heaven and earth. Chen Xing thought for a while and said, "Of course, we don't have to care about rules because those things are too abstract. Even a Saint King cannot understand them, let alone us small fries." Back to the topic, Lord Kong Yuan used his supreme power to temporarily activate the teleportation array in the city. However, it can only last for half a month at most. Chen Xing said seriously, since Lord Kong Yuan activated the teleportation array a few days earlier, he must have his reasons. In order to avoid any accidents and delays, it's better for us to set off earlier. The interplanar teleportation array was in an activated state at all times, operating naturally according to the will of heaven and earth. However, the teleportation array in the city needed to be activated before it could be used. Lin Feng nodded. Alright, let's set off then. The distance between the Millennium City and the Shuntian Sect's assessment location was extremely far. Even if they used the teleportation array, it would take them a full 10 days. Moreover, they would have to use more than 10 teleportation arrays, shuttling from city to city, before finally arriving at their destination, which was the Shuntian Sect's assessment location. It was one of the 7 core cities of the Shuntian Prefecture, the Hefu City. The Hefu City was about 30 times bigger than the Millennium City. It couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as the Millennium City. Moreover, the Hefu City's interplanar teleportation array was one of the 7 major cities that were connected to the highest number of high-grade planes. Generally speaking, the higher the grade of the plane, the higher the number of geniuses born, and the higher the quality. This was the main reason why the Hefu City was able to become one of the 7 core cities of the Shuntian Prefecture. After entering the Hefu City, the group walked straight to the central plaza. The crowd was crowded, and most of them were here to join in the fun. The Shuntian Sect's assessment that was held once every 10,000 years was a grand occasion for the entire Shuntian Prefecture. It was also a gathering of geniuses. Although it wasn't to say that all the geniuses of the Shuntian Prefecture were gathered here, most of them were. I heard that the monster from the Earl Jueshin clan is also participating in the assessment. That monster! Hasn't he already broken through to the high-grade Earth Saint realm? That's right. I heard that the reason why he didn't participate in the assessment before was because he wanted to wait until he broke through to the high-grade Earth Saint realm. This way, with his talent, he would be able to become a core disciple in no time. Not only that monster from the Earl Jueshin clan, even the second young master of the Hefu City's City Lord is planning to participate in the assessment. Oh right, there's also the young master of the Ji family. Other than these monsters, I heard that the Grand Dao City's City Lord, Daoist Hong Yuan, found a super genius from somewhere. He's not even 100 years old, but he's already a mid-grade Earth Saint. Moreover, he relied on his own strength to reach the mid-grade Earth Saint realm. 100 years old, mid-grade Earth Saint realm, heavens, is he still human? Even if I refine a Saint Godhead, I might not be able to break through to the mid-grade Earth Saint realm within 100 years, but this person relied on his own strength. AI comparisons are odious. They're already favored by heaven and earth from the moment they're born. They're not people we can speculate about. Faint whispers of discussion entered his ears. Hearing the names of the geniuses mentioned one after another, Linfeng's expression gradually turned solemn. He didn't feel much about other geniuses, but that guy who broke through to the mid-grade Earth Saint realm before the age of 100, even Linfeng was shocked. Although he knew that the Suiyang realm was huge, and there were bound to be some terrifying geniuses, only now did he truly understand the meaning of this sentence. The assessment this time is actually much denser than before. Chen Xing was also a little surprised. Linfeng asked doubtfully, "Wasn't it like this before?" You're thinking too much." Chen Xing couldn't help shaking his head. Although there are many geniuses in the Shuntian Manor, it's not as exaggerated as you think. If the Shuntian Manor has so many geniuses in every assessment, and the quality is so high, then the Shuntian Manor would have become the #1 manor on the Bloodridge continent a long time ago. Why would it be in such an awkward position? Lin Feng pondered. So many geniuses are here for the trial. Could it be that there's something fishy about the trial? Chen Xing pondered. I'm not sure about the specifics, but there should be something that no one knows. After a short pause, he reminded, although I don't know why so many geniuses came to participate in the assessment, as long as you perform well, passing the assessment shouldn't be a problem. As for him, Chen Xing glanced at Huang Wenbing. According to his previous experience, Huang Wenbing would have no problem passing the assessment, but there were too many geniuses this time, so Chen Xing didn't have much confidence. No matter what, I won't abandon them and enter the Shuntian sect alone, Lin Feng said indifferently. Chen Xing laughed bitterly. I haven't finished speaking yet. However, his meaning was exactly what Lin Feng understood, so Chen Xing didn't know how to persuade Lin Feng. Oh right, the Shuntian sect has 10 main peaks. They are the Medicine Peak, Alchemy Peak, Formation Peak, Smelting Peak, Cooking Peak, Gathering Peak, as well as the Weapon Refining Peak. The tests for the 10 main peaks are separated, so you'd better think carefully about which peak you want to join. Chen Xing hesitated for a moment, but I suggest that you don't choose the Weapon Refining Peak. Hearing this, Lin Feng frowned. Why? He wanted to choose the Weapon Refining Peak. Because the Weapon Refining Peak has declined. Chen Xing sighed. The Weapon Refining Peak has long been replaced by the newly rising Metal Refining Peak and Smelting Peak. Although it still retains the name of Weapon Refining Peak, in reality, it does not live up to its name. Furthermore, some unforeseen events have occurred in the Weapon Refining Peak, causing the overall strength of the Weapon Refining Peak to be far ahead of the other 9 peaks. The status of the disciples of the Weapon Refining Peak is also inferior to the other main peaks, and they are constantly suppressed. If you choose the Weapon Refining Peak, you won't be able to avoid being bullied in the future. If you want to have a better life in the future, it's best if you choose another peak. Chapter 446. Chen Xing's words caused Lin Feng to fall silent for a long time. All right. Lin Feng was not a pedantic person. Although he was stubborn, it was not irrational. Since the crafting peak had declined to such a state, there was no need for him to persist. Seeing that Huang Xiaolong had agreed, Chen Xing let out a sigh of relief and smiled. I was right about you. As they walked, a voice suddenly sounded out. Chen Xing, there was a trace of mockery in this voice. What kind of genius did you bring this time? Do you want me to take a look at them so that they don't pass the test and tarnish your reputation as the Eternal City's castellan? Chen Xing's face changed as he looked over, only to see a middle-aged man enter his line of sight. Behind the middle-aged man stood 3 people, 2 males and 1 female. All 3 of them had cold gazes and a trace of arrogance in their auras. They were here to participate in the Shuntian sect's test. Moreover, they looked quite young, but their cultivation had already reached the initial stage of the Earth Saint realm. The young man on the left had even reached the middle stage of the Earth Saint realm. His talent was outstanding. Although Huang Xiaolong did not know how strong they should not be weak. Otherwise, they would not have been chosen by the middle-aged man. Lan Guang, let's mind our own business. The person I brought has nothing to do with you. Although Chen Xing was angry, he suppressed his anger and said with a gloomy face. Lan Guang shook his head in disdain. This is your fault. We are both castellans of the Shuntian prefecture and should help each other. Isn't it good for me to show some concern for you? You. Huang Wenbing could not stand Lan Guang's arrogance. Chen Xing stopped Huang Wenbing with a single hand and took a deep breath. Thank you, but I don't need your concern. Haha, is that so? Lan Guang sneered. Good, then we'll wait and see. I hope your people can pass the Shuntian sect's test. Then, Lan Guang left with the 3 geniuses behind him. Huang Wenbing asked in confusion, Lord Castellan, this person is so arrogant. Why did you take a step back and swallow his anger? In his opinion, that person's strength was at most a high-level Earth Saint, not much different from Chen Xing. Why would Chen Xing take a step back? You don't know. Chen Xing heaved a sigh of relief as his expression dimmed a little. This person is the city lord of Zhongtian City. Zhongtian City is one of the top cities in the Shuntian prefecture, and its overall strength is within the top 100. As the city lord of Zhongtian City, Lan Guang's strength is much stronger than mine. Moreover, the transmission array of Zhongtian City is connected to many high-grade planes, and there are countless geniuses emerging from there. Among them, there are even a few core disciples of the Shuntian sect, and they are core disciples with relatively high statuses. If I were to fight with him, not to mention the fact that I'm not his opponent, any one of those core disciples would be able to easily kill me. The core disciples of the Shuntian sect were absolutely terrifying existences. City Lord, there's a question that has been bothering me for a long time. I don't know if I should ask. Lin Feng interrupted. Chen Xing said, "Feel free to speak your mind." Lin Feng nodded and said, "City Lord is a high-grade Earth Saint. Those core disciples, as well as that Lan Guang, are also high-grade Earth Saints. Even if there's a difference in strength, City Lord shouldn't be so afraid of them, right?" Hearing this, Chen Xing shook his head with a bitter smile. "Looks like you've all been deceived by the title of a high-grade Earth Saint." Lin Feng, Huang Wenbing, Jing Ting, and Nono looked at each other before looking at Chen Xing in shock. A trace of doubt appeared between their brows. "Originally, you guys would know about these things soon. Since you've asked, I'll explain it to you guys in detail so that you won't make any mistakes in the future." Chen Xing's expression turned serious as he said, "In the Sui Yang realm, the so-called low-grade Earth Saint, mid-grade Earth Saint, high-grade Earth Saint, and so on are just levels of cultivation that represent your current cultivation. However, how big is the Sui Yang realm? Geniuses are as numerous as carps crossing the river. Not to mention others, just our Shuntian prefecture has countless geniuses. For example, the young master of the Sea clan, the monster of the Iljackson clan, and so on. Moreover, many geniuses come from high-grade realms. Not only are their cultivation speed extremely fast, but they also have the terrifying ability to fight above their level." At this point, he paused for a moment as he sorted out his thoughts and continued, "Therefore, this has led to a result. Many people's combat strength can't simply be divided by their realms. Lin Feng, you should have a deep understanding of this point. With your strength, can it be described as the limit of a supreme being?" Lin Feng shook his head. His current strength was already comparable to a high-grade Earth Saint. Naturally, it couldn't be described as the limit of a supreme being. That's right. Other people's ability to fight above their level might not be as exaggerated as yours, but it shouldn't be underestimated either. Therefore, outside of realms, we have a system that is specially used to indicate one's strength. This system can be used by anyone. We call it the 9 heavenly earths. The 9 heavenly earths. Indeed, this method can clearly define a cultivator's strength. It's much clearer than the simple division of realms. Ordinary Supreme Being experts can't even be considered Earth Heavenly Earths. In order to become a Earth Heavenly Earths expert, one must at least be a low-grade Earth Saint. As soon as he said this, Lin Feng, Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and Nono couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. A low-grade Earth Saint expert was only Earth Heavenly Earth's expert. However, as you all know, there are countless laws of the Earth, especially the 7 strongest laws. Their power is extremely terrifying, and the power of the mixed laws is equally shocking. Therefore, above the 3rd stage of the Earth would be the High Earth Saint who has comprehended the law of speed. That would be the 4th stage of the Earth Saint realm. High Earth Saint who has comprehended the 7 strongest laws or the mixed laws would be the 5th stage of the Earth Saint realm. High Earth Saint who has comprehended any one of the 7 strongest laws would be the 6th stage of the Earth Saint realm. As for the 7th stage of the Earth Saint realm, all of them are at the great circle of the Earth Saint realm or are peerless geniuses that are hard to come by in 100 million years. It's not something that we can understand. A 7th grade Earth Heavenly Earths expert is already a Great Circle Earth Heavenly Earths expert. Wouldn't an 8th grade Earth Heavenly Earths expert be a Saint Ruler? A saint ruler is a supreme existence. Their strength is no longer within the range of the earth, heavenly earths. I only know that Great Circle Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, is also divided into different grades. Some are 7th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, while others are 8th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. As for 9th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, I've only heard of 4 people who have reached this level. Which 4? Azure Dragon of the East, Zhu Xianzi, Old Man Beixian, and Great Western King. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly flashed as he asked, "Then do you know where Zhu Xianzi is?" Cough cough. Qin Xing nearly choked on his saliva. That's a supreme existence in the 9th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. I'm just a 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. How would I know where she is? Hearing this, Lin Feng was a little disappointed, but it was also within his expectations. He asked doubtfully, "City Lord's strength is only 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert?" Only. Chen Xing had the urge to bang his head against a wall. A 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert was already very powerful, okay? Even in the entire Sui-Yang realm, they would definitely be considered experts. However, in Lin Feng's mouth, they were not even worth mentioning. Luckily, Chen Xing's self-cultivation was not bad, and he could also see that Lin Feng had no intention of wasting his time. Otherwise, just this point alone would have thoroughly offended him. Don't think that 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert is weak. In fact, 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert is already pretty good. That Lan Guang just now is a 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. However, his comprehension of the law is stronger than mine, and his degree of comprehension is also higher than mine. Thus, he can barely be considered a peak 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. As he spoke, his expression turned serious. Lan Guang is only a peak 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, but the 7 city lords of the Shuntian prefecture are all 5th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's experts. Furthermore, all of them are at the peak 5th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, comparable to the 10 peak masters of the Shuntian sect. Of the few core disciples that entered the Shuntian sect from Zhongtian City, 3 of them are at the peak 4th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, and one of them has already reached 5th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. If you meet them in the future, you must not become enemies with them. A 5th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert was definitely not someone that Lin Feng could resist. 5th grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's. Lin Feng calculated his own strength, and finally came to a conclusion that made people feel helpless. My strength can only be considered 3rd grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, right? If he wanted to be more specific, he should be at the late 3rd grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. This was also the result of his physical body and mental strength increasing by a large margin. Otherwise, his strength could only be considered at the early 3rd grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert. As expected of the Sui-Yang realm, as expected of the immortal secret ground that everyone yearns for. The number of experts here is frightening. Lin Feng could not help but sigh in his heart. However, he was not discouraged. Although he was only at the late 3rd grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, he believed that it would not be long before he could reach a higher level. This was the confidence that had been cultivated through countless battles and tempering, the confidence that could not be crushed by the heavens and collapsed by the earth. As expected of the most terrifying fighting genius in the history of Aeon City. If it was someone else, after knowing the 9 grades of Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, they would be more or less shocked, right? Chen Xing secretly praised. Just based on this confidence alone, his future achievements will definitely not be low. He did not know how far Lin Feng could go, but he was sure that he would go further than him. Nono and the others were also calculating their own strength in their hearts. Nono. I should be at the early 2nd grade Earth, Heavenly Earth's expert, right? Huang Wenbing. My strength should be between the peak first-grade Earth Heavenly Earth's expert and the early second-grade Earth Heavenly Earth's expert. Jing-ting. I think I'm only at the middle first-grade Earth Heavenly Earth's expert. After this calculation, they found that their strength was still at the bottom of the Sui-Yang realm. Nono and Huang Wenbing's originally somewhat elated hearts fell back to the ground, and they recognized the reality. Boss, what level is your strength at? Huang Wenbing curiously asked. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Feng. Even Chen Xing could not help but focus his attention, looking at Lin Feng expectantly. Hearing this, Lin Feng touched his nose, raised his eyebrows slightly, and said slowly, I should be at the third-grade Earth Heavenly Earth's expert. Third-grade Earth Heavenly Earth's expert, an ordinary high-grade Earth saint. Whether it was Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, Nono, or Aeon City's City Lord Chen Xing, they were all petrified on the spot. Supreme Peak? High-grade Earth Saint? Supreme Peak was comparable to a high-grade Earth Saint. Chapter 447. The Shuntian Sex Examination was always the most lively event in the Shuntian Prefecture. With so many geniuses appearing in this year's examination, it was no doubt even more eye-catching. But just as Chen Xing said, the more geniuses there were, the higher the requirements for the Shuntian Sex Examination. Although Lin Feng, Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and Nono were already mentally prepared, when they heard the requirements for the examination, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, their faces turning ugly. The first day of the Shuntian Sex Examination. Lin Feng, Jing Ting, Huang Wenbing, and the rest didn't even have the time to take the recommendation token given by Chen Xing when they heard a piece of shocking news. The most basic requirement for this year's examination was that one's cultivation had to be at least at the initial stage of the Earth Saint realm. This news could be said to have caught Lin Feng off guard. He had thought of many possibilities, but never would he have guessed that it would be like this. He was worried about Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing, but in the end, Jing Ting and Huang Wenbing both had the qualifications to take part in the examination, while he himself didn't even meet the most basic requirements. Boss! Huang Wenbing looked at Lin Feng worriedly, extremely dissatisfied with the Shuntian sect. These people's brains must be sick, to actually set such a strange requirement. Nono was also dissatisfied with Lin Feng. They really have eyes but can't see. Boss is such a genius, but he doesn't even have the qualifications to take part in the examination. Jing Ting was also very depressed. They're too much of a bully. Chen Xing, who had originally promised that Lin Feng would definitely be able to join the Shuntian sect, was now incomparably gloomy. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot. At the same time, he was also incomparably guilty. Facing such an awkward situation, he was clearly at a loss. Although his heart was very depressed, Lin Feng quickly calmed down. Looking at Huang Wenbing and Jing Ting, he said, No matter what, you two go take part in the examination first. No, boss, I won't go. Huang Wenbing emotionally refused. Even if you give me a huge reward, I won't go anywhere without boss. Jing Ting's emotions were much calmer, but towards Lin Feng's suggestion, she also shook her head and refused without hesitation. Seeing the two's reaction, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. You don't have to worry about me. With my strength, even if I can't enter the Shuntian sect, there are still many places I can stay. If worse comes to worst, I can stay in Aeon City. I'm sure the City Lord can guarantee my safety. However, the two of you are different. Although you are all Earth Saints, if you really encounter any danger, I may not be able to save you. Go, when you are strong enough, you can come and find me. Wenbing, you will always be my good brother. Jing Ting, you will always be my friend. If you treat me as a brother or a friend, then don't make things difficult for me. Huang Wenbing opened his mouth. Boss, Jing Ting's expression was also complicated. She mouthed two words silently, friend. A trace of disappointment flashed through her elegant eyes. Was she really just an ordinary friend in his heart? That's enough. The test is about to begin. All of you go. Lin Feng took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Clenching his teeth, Huang Wenbing's expression kept changing. After a long time, he slowly said, "Okay, boss, I promise you that I will participate in the test." However, no one knew what he was thinking in his heart. Jing Ting was silent for a moment before nodding her head. "I will listen to you." 4 simple words, but they contained too many deep feelings. Lin Feng let out a sigh of relief and smiled. "I wish you all success." Soon, under the supervision of a super expert, the test officially began. In the center of the plaza, on the highest platform, there were 3 super experts overseeing the test. They were the city lords of the 7 major cities of Shuntian Prefecture. All of them were at the peak of Earth Stage 5, and their status was comparable to the 10 peak masters of Shuntian sect. Other than that, there were also the 10 vice peak masters of Shuntian sect, as well as the elders of each peak. Their strength was at the peak of Earth Stage 4, and there were even some who were at the peak of Earth Stage 5. Under such a terrifying lineup, no one dared to cause trouble. Even the peak of Earth Stage 5 did not have the courage to do so. "Boss, I will go participate in the test first." Huang Wenbing seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became relaxed again. His tone was also not heavy. Jing Ting glanced at Lin Feng but did not say anything. Lin Feng raised his fist and cheered for them. "Good luck!" The assessment that Huang Wenbing chose to participate in was the Berserk Battle Peak, a main peak that pursued the pinnacle of combat. On the other hand, Jing Ting chose the Fair Maiden Peak. This was because the entire Fair Maiden Peak was filled with female disciples, and their status was not much lower than the other main peak. To most female earth cultivators, this was undoubtedly a very good choice. The first round of the test was very simple. They were to withstand the full force of a high-level Earth Saint for 1 minute. Within this 1 minute, they were not allowed to fall to the ground, bend over, or make a sound. This high-level Earth Saint seemed to be at the peak of Earth Stage 4, and his strength was even stronger than Chen Xing. Wenbing and the rest should be able to withstand this kind of force. Lin Feng guessed in his heart. There were about 30,000 people participating in the battle-crazed peak, and 10,000 in the Fair Maiden Peak. After 1 minute, the number of people left on the plaza had decreased by more than half. There were only 6,000 people left on the battle-crazed peak, and 3,000 on the Fair Maiden Peak. Lin Feng was surprised. These female earth cultivators actually have such strong tenacity. Chen Xing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Brother Lin, could it be that in your mind, female earth cultivators are definitely inferior to male earth cultivators?" Lin Feng was puzzled. "I'm not discriminating against women. According to my experience, female earth cultivators are indeed inferior to male earth cultivators, right?" "That's right, but there's one thing you don't understand." Chen Xing nodded, then shook his head. "Female earth cultivators are mostly inferior to male earth cultivators. However, to be able to enter the Suiyang realm from various large planes and survive there, which one of them is mediocre? Moreover, no matter where they are, the pressure of survival for female earth cultivators is far greater than that of male earth cultivators. Their experiences are more difficult, so their tenacity is also stronger than that of male earth cultivators. Of course, those women who sell their bodies and souls in exchange for status, glory, and strength are not included in this list." Lin Feng looked pensive. "That makes sense." The second round of the battle-crazed peak test was comprehension. Participants were required to comprehend the technique of law contained in a sculpture within a set amount of time. They only needed to reach the small success stage. Many techniques of law were sealed in this sculpture, including almost all the laws. Therefore, everyone who looked at it would be able to comprehend the technique of law that was compatible with them. The second round of the Fair Maiden Peak test was an illusion test. Participants had to pass through the illusion within a set amount of time. Once they exceeded the time limit or failed, they would be eliminated. The difficulty of this test was undoubtedly much higher. The first test of the 10 main peaks was also tenacity, but the second test was different for different main peak. I've known Wenbing for so long, but I still don't know how his comprehension is. I hope there's no problem. Lin Feng frowned slightly. As for Jingting, he wasn't worried. Jingting's fighting strength might not be as good as Huang Wenbing's, but her temperament was far better than Huang Wenbing's. It could be said that she had the best temperament among the people Lin Feng was familiar with. Although most of his attention was on Huang Wenbing and Jingting, Lin Feng didn't stop observing the others. There were many monstrous geniuses participating in this test, and Lin Feng was very curious about their result. The monstrous genius of the Earl Juexin family, Earl Juexin Duo Kuan, was said to have cultivated the law of speed, law of explosion, and law of light. These 3 laws were ranked at the top of the 7 strongest laws. Moreover, he was a high-level Earth Saint, suspected to be a mid-stage Earth 4th stage expert. His strength wouldn't be weaker than Qin Xing, the city lord of Aeon City. The young master of the Ho family, Ho Xun, was said to have cultivated the law of soul, one of the 7 strongest laws. Although the other 2 laws were slightly ordinary, they still couldn't be underestimated. His cultivation was also a high-level Earth Saint, suspected to be a mid-stage Earth 4th stage expert. Yan An's son, Yan Luo, cultivated the law of death, law of destruction, and law of darkness. His strength was even more terrifying than Earl Juexin Duo Kuan, having reached the late-stage Earth 4th stage. Even a peak Earth 4th stage expert would be wary of him. The laws he comprehended were too terrifying, and his soul could be easily destroyed. Other than these 3 people, there was one more person that Lin Feng was more concerned about. It was the mid-level Earth Saint who was less than 100 years old. There were many people who represented the great Tao city to participate in the assessment, but he was the most dazzling one. This person was called Yun Zhongtian, and the law he cultivated was unknown. However, it was rumored that his strength had reached the early stage Earth 4th stage. For a mid-level Earth Saint to have the strength of an early stage Earth 4th stage expert, the law he cultivated was undoubtedly terrifying. It was most likely one of the 7 strongest laws, and the other one must be ranked very high. So strong. When Lin Feng saw the situation of their assessment, he couldn't help but become solemn. The first round of assessment was nothing to them. The second round of assessment is still nothing to them. Indeed, as soon as he finished speaking, the 4 of them passed the assessment almost at the same time. Countless onlookers also sucked in a breath of cold air one after another. They were shocked to the extreme. The quality of this batch of geniuses was too high. Every one of these 4 was more powerful than the previous batch of geniuses. It's a pity that I won't have the chance to spar with these geniuses. Lin Feng felt a little regretful. Lin Feng was just a nobody that no one paid attention to, while these 4 were all famous geniuses of the Shuntian prefecture. Although Lin Feng felt that he was not inferior to them and was confident that he could catch up to them in a short time, it was a pity that he didn't have the chance. Just as Lin Feng was thinking that it was a pity, another round of cheers rang out, disrupting his thoughts. Looking up, he saw Jing Ting with a quiet smile on her face as she slowly walked out of the illusory tower. Her black gem-like eyes shone with a charming light. She was actually the first person to pass the illusory tower assessment. Among all the participants, she was second only to Yan Luo and Hua Xun. Lin Feng immediately clenched his fists, happy for her. Good! Only after an hour had passed did Huang Wenbing pass the assessment. Although he wasn't outstanding, at least he passed the assessment. Boss, just you wait. I will definitely let you have the qualifications to participate in the assessment. Huang Wenbing's eyes flashed, his expression firm. Jing Ting's gaze also fell on Lin Feng. Although she didn't speak, she had the same thought. Wherever you are, it is an oasis. Wherever you are, it is a desert. Her black eyes were still so clear and bright. P.S. The first update is presented. Thank you everyone for your monthly votes, your recommendation tickets, and thank you for your rewards. Although there were many twists and turns during the update period, it did not shake my determination to finish this book. I will not disappoint everyone's expectations and write this book well. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.